All right, man. I'm ready if you are.
Okay, hit the button. Hmm. Ouch.
Hello, everyone. I'm joined today with the Devil's Advocate. You may also know him on Kotaku in Action and Twitter as MCT. He organized the GamerGate meetups in San Francisco, and he is a self-described professional shitposter. So, how are you doing?
Dude, you're giving out my docs. What the fuck are you doing? Hey, man.
Hey, I keep them open-ended pretty much in the beginning, so I'll just ask you straight up. Tell me about your GamerGate experience.
Oh boy, so I had to really do some deep thinking on this one. I'm pretty sure I got started. The magical, all-knowing YouTube algorithm decided that I would really enjoy Internet Aristocrats' Quinspiracy video. At least I think that was it. Uh, sh- so I ended up watching that, and of course, Jim's fucking hilarious. And I'm like, after I watched that, I'm like, well, okay, I want to know more. I want to know more. And at the time, don't shoot me because I know you were on there too. I was on Reddit, and so I went looking there for more information, and that ended up directing me to Kotaku in Action. So I ended up joining there, and I ended up finding out about the Hatman streams because he was still doing he was doing GG related streams at the time, and so I ended up popping in on a couple of his streams, and that was actually what got me to make an account on Twitter. Because before that, social media, ew, why? But I ended up making a Twitter account just to stay in touch with him and a couple other people. And then before long, people were talking about making meetups. And at the time, let me think, there was a couple people in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. For those of you not in hell, uh, there was a couple of people that were going to set up a meetup, and at the time they were suggesting that it would be in San Francisco. And I'm like, great, because I didn't have a car at the time, and I was like, okay, I can just take public transit. It'll be cool. At the last minute, they decided they wanted to change it to, oh God, San Jose. That's what it was. Because they got a lot of responses from the South Bay, and that would be more convenient for everybody. And I'm like, yeah, I can't really make that. Sorry. And after a little back and forth, I'm just like, nah, you know what? I'll just go ahead and I'll do my own in San Francisco with blackjack and hookers. And, well, anyway. So I ended up doing my own meetup, and originally it was just going to be a one-off thing, but we had so much fun that towards the end of the night, I'm stuffing my face with pizza, and somebody asked me, I forget what they asked me, but I'm like, in 3 months we're going to do it again. And I managed to keep that promise for the better part of 2 years until COVID struck. And then, well, things just kind of petered out. And even once the lockdown stopped, we just never really started up again because by that point, most people, most of the regular, well, here, let me backtrack a little. Um, our initial meetup was maybe 12, yeah, about 12 people, I think. But then as, time went on and, GG just kept blowing up, we kept growing and growing and growing, and then finally, things start tapering off until it was almost exactly the original people who had showed up for the first meetup. Uh, shit, I lost my train of thought.
Well, hey, meetups, dude, those were great. I organized the St. Louis ones, actually.
Oh,
I still
really?
keep in touch with some of those people, but we don't. I have not done a GamerGate meetup since 2018, and I think actually, from what I was able to, you may be able to correct me on this, and you may have already corrected me on this. The last publicly advertised GamerGate meetup that I could find was your San Francisco meetup in 2018, the second one in 2018.
Yeah, that's probably right. Because honestly, I didn't really keep track of any of the other meetups. I was just too busy doing my own thing. Uh,
I haven't like looked super
yeah.
hard, but I checked on Reddit, and yours was the last one that got publicly advertised on Kotaku in Action, at least.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds right.
and that was the summer of 2018 meetup in San Francisco. Now, you did. It sounds like you kept going doing them though. even though you weren't posting on Kotaku in Action about them anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a little bit of an internal dispute where I won't name names, but certain people had asked me, "Hey, can we like not use the GG name because I'm having trouble at work. I don't want people to find out that I'm a part of this, that sort of thing." And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not going to give on that." And mind you, I understood why they were asking, but I I felt that if I gave in on that, it was just a real slippery slope. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And not too long after that, they did eventually distance themselves from us. And mind you, I don't have any ill will against them, but you know, I just felt I had to stick to principles.
Yeah, and it's worth. I agree with your decision, by the way. Otherwise, it's just a group of people hanging out and being friends, which is totally fine. But
Well,
that's not
mind
a
you,
GamerGate meetup anymore.
oh yeah, see, now you got me back to my original train of thought. Uh, yeah, so even though we weren't officially calling it GG anymore, I mean, I stuck to my principles. We kept having the meetups, but then over time, it, we stopped advertising them because it was like, whatever. There's only a core group of people, and most of them were either in a Twitter group, Twitter DM group with me, or I had their email or whatever. So I would just send out like, hey, it's that time. So I just didn't bother advertising on KIA anymore because. Or Twitter for that matter, because why bother? Nobody knew was showing up. I figured GG was kind of dead, but hey, I got a bunch of friends out of it, and they basically became my Alcohol Anonymous group. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, the St. Louis ones we didn't get too big at all. I think maybe like the biggest. I ran like 5 meetups here,
Right.
5 or 6, and we had maybe like 8 people, maybe roughly. And there were also some people too who were like ancillary to like who weren't even involved in GamerGate, um, but like had like an interest in like checking it out.
Right.
So we had well, I'm not gonna like these aren't GamerGate people. I'm not gonna like say their names or anything. But we had a couple people who went to a couple of the meetups who weren't even like involved with GamerGate. They just thought it was like an interesting thing happening in their hometown in St. Louis. And they
Yeah.
were like, "Oh, this GamerGate thing, I want to check it out." And they like didn't even know what GamerGate was really about or anything. They're just like, "Oh, that sounds like an interesting thing. Let me try it." Because I promoted it, I guess like on Twitter and stuff, use like the St. Louis hashtag and stuff. And so like we got a couple of randos, but most of the people, like the core people, all had at least like were involved with GamerGate or had like a very good understanding of it. Though it was
Right.
not as big as I would have liked, but it was
Yeah.
fun.
It was definitely fun. Yeah. I mean, when let's see, when we hit our peak, I think we had like 45 people or so, and we, what was it? The Dancing Bear? Fuck, I can't remember. I can't remember the name. We found a really great bar in San Francisco where we damn near packed it, and we started to bounce to another place. We were looking at this one whiskey bar or something, and we roll up there with like 45 people, and we're like, "Hey, can you seat us?" And they took one look at us, and they're like, "No, what are you talking about?"
Dude,
Oh
like have you
man,
seen like the Los Angeles picture? Holy fuck, dude. There's like 80
they,
people in the room, dude. Holy shit.
yeah, they definitely had some people.
Yeah, dude. And then like there were some obviously a lot of big ones. I think like the UK ones were pretty big, and the Australian ones, people talked about it a lot. I don't know if how big they really were. They had like a friendly rivalry with you guys. I went through like the old GGNSF hashtag before interviewing you, and some of the Melbourne people in there are giving you shit.
If they did, I never really noticed it. I mean, okay.
I mean, this was like 7 years ago, so like,
Well, obviously, it didn't make that much of an impression, so there you
yeah.
go.
But yeah, I love that there's so many people across the country and across the world who were passionate about this and wanted to meet up and do this in real life. It was really great. The Toronto
Yeah.
people, they actually are planning on doing a meetup next year.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to publicly advertise it, but it's been floated, and not by me, not by I don't live in Toronto, but a couple of them were saying that they're going to try and get something together next year. And this is like the first one I think they're doing in a while. So
I don't know. Press X to doubt on that. We'll see if anything actually comes of that.
yeah, well, I think they want to keep it kind of small, which is probably what I probably shouldn't be talking about it on live streams. But like it's not private. Like they've they've said publicly that this is going to be a thing.
Right.
So um, there's been talk by me about this is my brainchild that I'm probably not going to be hosting because I don't have interest in hosting it. But there's talk of doing a like a GamerGate reunion like once a decade. Not maybe not for the 10-year anniversary, but for the 20-year anniversary. Uh, would you have any interest in like doing something like that?
No. Why the fuck would we do
Dude, get like
that?
everybody together, dude. Like get the old gang back together again.
Oh sure. Oh
All
sure. And
over the
we'll get
world.
Trump
One.
to. No. We'll get Trump to tweet out #GamerGate, and it'll start all over again, just like Sargon said.
Dude. So you
But
wouldn't want to do
no.
that?
No. Honestly, I can't. I really don't see any point to that. Just what would be the point?
Well, it would just be like everybody who we were activists, like you know how like different people who go through different historical phenomenon, like do meetups and stuff, like people who serve on Navy ships together, they'll actually do meetups in real life, every few years or once a year, with the past and current crew members. It would be like
Okay.
that, but for Gamergate.
But yeah, but for shit posters who didn't like, get shot at or anything. No, I don't think so. I'll pass.
Hey, some of us did get doxxed though.
Okay, yeah. Well, for you guys, you do that.
And then we'll get doxxed again at the meetup, at the reunion.
Yeah, there you go.
Some
Yeah,
bad actor is gonna show up and.
just look for the guy who's got the little thing wrapped around his ear and he's glowing furiously, and you'll know.
All right, all right. Well, hey, can you? Well, you found out about GamerGate through the Internet Aristocrat videos. What made this something that you were so interested in?
Okay, at first it was just because to me, Jim was hilarious. I'm not gonna lie, it was salacious, and the accusations that were being made were kind of sort of interesting. Not that interesting, if I'm honest, but the reaction to it. That's what really got my attention. The fact that so many people were coming out and saying, "Oh, you can't talk about this. This is harassment." Bullshit. There's there's a legitimate claim being made here. Let's talk about it. Let's investigate it. And the fact that so many people came out and said, "No, no, you can't," that made me really want to dig.
Yeah, one of the anti-Gamergate people I've interviewed, Hannah Zamora, she thinks that anybody who wanted to talk about ethics or anything else like that, or any other topic other than harassment in the month of August 2014, at least as it relates to gaming, that the only that they shouldn't have talked about it. She said that anyone who talks about ethics or other topics in August 2014 instead of making the entire conversation about harassment, um, that they are objectively wrong. And
Yeah, 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 she sounds like a massive cunt who just wants to control the narrative. So fuck her.
yeah, well, I'm on good terms with her. I'm glad that the anti-Gamergate people have provided a counterweight to the pro-Gamergate voices, and I'm glad that she agreed to do the project. So I don't have anything personally against her or anything. I disagreed with her both when she said that and now, um, but it's not a personal thing.
Oh well, hey, my comment just now wasn't personal. It was just directed at her comments. That sounds like something a cunt would say.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, can you define what Gamergate was?
Ooh, yeah, pretty simple. Gamergate started out as someone's personal controversy, which got blown up into a controversy over ethics in gaming journalism because certain people wanted to protect their friend at all costs.
So you think that Gamergate started more as a personal controversy, this personal scandal, rather than being, well, I mean, I guess the personal scandal was intertwined with ethics in games journalism too. So
Yeah,
like it's,
it it was the two factors were deeply intertwined. The fact that a lot of forum moderators that were trying to put the kibosh on this were personal friends with Zil Quinn. Um, yeah, there's really no separating the two as far as I'm concerned. But what really made it blow up was the fact that they just couldn't let it go. And I know other people have said this before, but honestly, if they had just let people talk about this for, a week or two or whatever, people would have gotten tired of it because they realistically they weren't going to get any real answers. And if they didn't get any answers after a couple of weeks, they just would have dropped it and there would have been no GG. It would have gotten swept under the rug. But instead, because they couldn't let it go, people, being on the internet, you try telling somebody you can't talk about something, they're going to say fuck you and they're going to find a way to talk about it. And that's how we got where we are today.
So for you, was GamerGate only about the personal scandal and ethics in games journalism, or did it take on other facets as well?
It definitely took on other facets because once you get into the ethics side of things and you start talking about why these people are trying to cover up for their friends and why journalists are willing to cover up even for people they don't know. It gets your brain jogging. It makes you ask, if they're willing to lie about something seemingly inconsequential, what else are they lying about? People that they demonized in the past, could they have an actual point? Is there something there? And it starts leading people into, well, for want of a better word, class warfare. I mean, I know some people try to frame this as cultural war topics or what have you, but honestly, for me, I tend to frame it in, well, openly Marxist terms. If I'm honest, I'm not a Marxist myself, but I'm more than happy to use their vocabulary against them. Um, and yeah, it really gets people to start thinking about these kind of issues, and it leads them in that direction.
So for you, the culture war topics, that was more ancillary.
That what I would say, it started with personal stuff. Haha, this is funny. This is salacious. It gets into ethics and journalism with the cover up. And then that starts bringing in all the culture war topics as sort of a distant third. And that, I think, is where a lot of people started that's where you started to see a split in the community where you had people accusing others of being so-called ethics cucks because they wanted to stick to the main so-called main topic of ethics and games journalism, whereas other people, they saw that there was a much broader issue here and they wanted to talk about all this otherwise ancillary stuff. And obviously nobody ever nobody ever really came to any kind of agreement on that, as I'm sure you found out.
Yeah, you ask 10 different people what GamerGate. Well, I don't think you get 10 different answers. Maybe depends on who you ask, but you do get a couple different answers. If you ask, let me rephrase the question. If you ask 40 people about GamerGate, you get about 5 or 6 different answers about what it
Fair,
was.
yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
Um, do you consider yourself a gamer? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, not to dox myself, but I'm in my early 40s. One of my earliest memories was playing an Atari 2600 and a ColecoVision, which I'm pretty sure you have no idea what the fuck those are, but
Actually, I
that's
have
okay.
heard of both of those. I'm not. I'm young, but
Oh,
I'm
oh,
young,
you've
quote unquote.
heard
But
of them. You've
I've played a
you've heard of them.
2600 before. My friend in middle school actually had one, and it started smoking at one point, which was not a good sign. Uh,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yes,
definitely
we
not.
I have played.
So yeah, from like my earliest memories, that would have been like when I was 3 or 4 years old. But then on top of that, we had some very my old man. He was big into video games and computers because, of course, at that time that would have been around 81 or 82 or so. That was, the beginning of the microcomputer revolution. So he bought himself a very early S100 based microcomputer kit, and so I got exposed to computer games very early on, and then suddenly we had a PC, and it kept going from there.
I do want to take it back. Maybe 5 or 6 has been unfair. I think you get like a few different answers when you ask people about this. I think you get, yeah, because I've been wanting to include this part of the book. I was going to include it at the very end because like unless I hear like new crazy shit, but it seems like for most people it was about ethics. Like everyone agrees that that was part of it. And then when you move away from that, it becomes more controversial. Like some people would say it's about censorship or artistic freedom, and like that could mean different things to different people too. But I think that to me personally, when I was involved with GamerGate, that was ethics and creative freedom, were like artistic freedom, were the two things for me. But then other people would say censorship beyond just art is also part of the discussion, and I understand that as well because obviously the GamerGate topic itself was censored in many cases. And the GamerGate community, of course, I think by and large, most of the people were very, very, very much against censorship. Maybe you'll find some people who were, just because it's a large group of people and people have very diverse views. But most of the people did have very strong feelings. At the very least, they had strong feelings that the Overton window was closing too much.
Right.
And
Um.
then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say. I think that you can reconcile a lot of this, and you can reconcile most of these viewpoints through a bit of an analogy. The blind men and the elephant. Familiar with that one?
No, please explain it.
Okay. It's the I. Wait a minute. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. A number of blind men trying to describe an elephant to each other, but each one of them is grabbing onto a different part of the elephant. And so they each have a piece of the puzzle, but they can't describe the actual object because they don't have that full view because again, they're blind. They just have their own localized view. So in this case, each individual that's involved in GG, they're focused on whatever matters to them, and for them, that is GG, and everything else is just kind of bullshit or derivative or what have you.
Yeah, and some people, this is a very much a minority view, actually, it seems, but like some people think that Gamergate was the culture war in the gaming industry. I've interviewed at least like 2 people who held that view.
I mean, again, for them, that might be true. But I would say for the vast majority that, eh, I would say they probably followed my path. Or, well, okay, that's me being the blind man with the elephant. Um, yeah, if I really had to put my finger on it, I would say a lot of people they heard about it when the ethics stuff started getting discussed. That for them was GG,
Yeah.
and then other people came on board as soon as censorship started being talked about and what have you.
Well, and I can understand, like, people got involved at different points too. Like, the reason
Right.
artistic freedom is such a huge part of Gamergate for me, where it's not as much for people who started in the beginning at Gamergate, though there were some people like that, like Oron Dark Lord. Um, or no, actually, he was a 2015 person too. Um, the reason like artistic freedom was a huge part of it for me is because I got involved because of the change the cover controversy and other controversies like that on Twitter, which were like kind of ancillary to Gamergate stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but I was following a bunch of the people on both sides and talking with them, just like occasionally chatted with them on both sides. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm very much on the save the cover side. And that was basically Gamergate people. Like there, it wasn't a circle, but there was some overlap. So even though like someone might say, well, the change the cover thing's not like directly Gamergate stuff. It's what I when I decided to get involved because it seemed like these people were very much standing up for artistic freedom and making arguments that I thought were good. But other people, if you got involved in Gamergate like super late, like if you consider yourself a Gamergate person who got involved in like 2017 or 2018, I could understand why for you might think, oh, it's kind of a culture war thing
Well,
because
sure, because I mean, around that time you would have been talking about what Metalgate, Comicsgate, that sort of thing. So that's understandable.
and then some people too, they wanted that they thought it was about, and for them it was about um, industry practices too, where they were unhappy with practices in the industry. game developers ripping them off, releasing half-broken games, day one DLC, microtransactions everywhere, even for fully paid products,
Well,
stuff like that.
just to comment on that real quickly, and this is something that I've argued for before. There's a very, very simple solution to all of these problems, and it's no, I'm very serious. Very simple solution. Here you go. Stop buying that shit. There you go.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And there were people who wanted to organize boycotts. They wanted to organize like official boycotts, and I'm fine with this. I'm fine with consumers boycotting. I just didn't think that you shouldn't have like a GamerGate approved game list or anything like that. God forbid, right? It shouldn't be like a GamerGate specific, like GamerGate supports endorses this game or GamerGate boycotts this game. I wouldn't support anything like that. But I think people coming
No,
together and creating their own boycotts is probably a good idea.
honestly, what people should have done is just document who is engaged in unethical practices and just stay away from those companies. Don't buy their products. Go find something you do like and play that and play it with your friends. There, problem solved. You've overcome the problem of networking effects. You've got friends, play with your friends. Play the games you want to play. Even if you gotta, go to certain sites to get it, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I still haven't bought Fire Emblem Fates, and I probably never will because they butchered the game so bad.
See, that's one of the reasons why you got to learn another language. I think you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get to localization stuff later. So these are sort of like the things that people say Gamergate did. Well, I guess there's the ethics stuff, and you say personal drama too. You're the first person to say that, so I guess I need to add like a new thing that people consider Gamergate to be. So ethics stuff, personal drama, um, corruption, or sorry, censorship in general, artistic freedom, gaming industry issues, and then there's also people. Well, there's like one person, I guess. Well, two if you count like Seattle for Truth, like Seattle for Truth and Thydrin, like their big thing, and they were kind of
You know, I don't
controversial.
know that.
Their big
Yeah,
thing
I
was
don't
that
know
they
that you can. Sorry, I don't think you can take Seattle for Truth seriously. I mean, isn't he the guy who stabbed his own father? Do we
yeah he
really want
went
to
to
take his
prison,
word
yeah.
on anything?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
during Gamergate, him and like Thydrin were like big on this idea of well, one, educational technology, and two, the military. So they were well, Seattle for Truth was like a conspiracy theorist even before Gamergate, if you recall. Um, that was like his YouTube content. He was a conspiracy YouTuber. So they were focused on this idea that the government was using games to like propagandize to the public. I don't think for the vast majority of people, Gamergate was this thing. And I've even
No.
said as much both back then and today. But um, that's what they claim Gamergate was about, at least in part.
I mean, they're welcome to their opinion, but their opinion is wrong.
Yeah. All right. So is the term gamer gendered to you?
No, absolutely not. Again, going back to my experience, as much as I don't get along with my sister, she took to games pretty well, I'd say. She enjoyed playing Contra back in the day on the NES. That was her thing. Um, Maybe didn't play as much as I did, but yeah, it was never really a gendered thing, even back in my day. Uh, I would say I would say that that impression comes from the fact that uh, boys ended up playing more than girls. That's a fact. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be that way. It doesn't mean that it was that way. You can't take any random person and say, "Oh, you're a girl. Oh, okay, you can't play. You're not a gamer." Like, fuck you.
On August 28th, 2014, 10 competing publications all 10 competing outlets all published articles on the same day. These 10 articles were followed by 9 additional articles and other mostly gaming sites over the next few days, which some saw as calling for an end to the gamer identity. What did you think of these articles?
And we really call them competing when they're all participating in the same mailing list.
Well, that's a good question. That's a later question coming up too.
Okay. Yeah. So my let's see, my interpretation at the time was fuck these guys. This is clickbait bullshit. For one, these at the time these were clearly people who had identified, oh, this GG thing, this this is outrage bait. This is our chance to get some clicks, and so they just printed what they knew would really rile people up. Um, Obviously, it turns out that that is their actual opinion, but really, their actual opinions don't matter. For them, it was about the clicks. At the end of the day.
Well, that sort of answers my next question. Why do you think they wrote these articles?
Yeah, I'm good like that.
If the games press tried to reform or even just ignored ethical issues, instead of publishing the Gamers Are Dead articles, do you think this still would have blown up into a massive controversy?
Um, Maybe not as big because you got to remember there were forum moderators that were friends of Zoquin who tried to squash discussion in their forums. So in that sense, yeah, there still would have been controversy, but maybe not quite on the scale that we have. Um, yeah.
If you have the evidence, by the way, of Zoe Quinn being friends with the forum moderators, I would like to see that. That could be useful to the project.
If I did, I would hand it over immediately. That was the rumor.
I've heard
So
that from
take
other
that with a
people as
massive
well.
grain of salt. Yeah.
Why do you think the Games Press didn't go that route and just say, hey, look, we fucked up, our bad, we'll do better?
Oh no, press will never admit that they're wrong. If they do, you should be deeply suspicious of their motives. The press live and die on their reputation. They rely heavily on the fact that people will watch them lie. They will know that they're lying, and then 5 minutes later, they'll forget about it and read another article from them and go, "Oh, okay, this must be the truth." So for them to go out of their way to point out the fact that they fucked up, no, that is not good for their reputation at all. Um, yeah.
I mean, you say that, but like that's actually what we want them to do, right? Because if they're an honest broker, they are going to admit to mistakes and they are going to try and issue corrections when
But they're
necessary.
not
And
on. No, my guy, they are not honest brokers. Just
well,
disabuse
I said
yourself of
if
that
we should
notion
like
right now.
we should want them to be.
Yeah, if that's a big if, you could drive an army through that if. Um, they are not honest brokers. Certainly, we would like them to be so, but at the end of the day, journalists are a active arm of the PR firms that they are in service to. They will print out whatever their corporate masters tell them to. They will leverage their voice to communicate whatever social issues they want to talk about. And they will never be honest about it. They will always they will always cover for each other, and to try to expect them to do otherwise is, well, not to be an asshole, but naive.
Well, let's push back a little bit. They did issue corrections to a large number of the articles that we pointed out were not all of them. They didn't correct all of them, and it would depend on the publication. Some of them did better than others, but they did actually correct a large number of the articles that we pointed out had very clear conflicts of interest in them.
After the fact and after the controversy, where nobody would see them and nobody would care, and they already got the clicks. So, yeah.
What do you think of games journalism?
I think they are bottom feeders who should all be chucked into a chipper shredder.
Damn, tell us how you really feel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that not deep enough? Um, No, I think that they are just PR actors. They literally just pick up whatever corporate bullshit they're given and try to make whatever kind of money they can off of that. And then, like I said, if they can build an audience, they'll try to use that to push whatever social issues they're interested in. Thankfully, we are slowly but surely entering into an era where a lot of companies have figured out they don't need those people as intermediaries. They can just go directly to the customer. Nintendo kind of led that charge from way back in the day, and other people are just now catching on that customer direct line of marketing is actually working. So hey, good for them. But for the journalists, no, they're going to lose some jobs, and frankly, they deserve it.
Well, were there any kind of reforms that you would have liked to have seen happen, or were you pretty black pilled back then as well?
No, I was black pilled way way before this. In my view, these people have a class interest that is not going to be shaken just because some consumers are pissed off about it. They're not going to care. They're just going to do what they do. So I really don't see that there is room for reform here. How do you reform somebody who has a vested interest in fucking you over?
Well, I think some people had an interesting idea, though it didn't really pan out the way we hoped, which is build a new games press.
Oh, yeah, we saw how that worked out. In fact, be sure to bring. I don't know. Do you want to get into that now about my beef with Tech Raptor? Or
Sure, let's do it.
okay, so I had to dig into this because when we first talked about doing this, and I mentioned some of the points that I could bring up. Again, this was so long ago, I had forgotten most of it. So I believe it was Roy Kalbeck at Tech Raptor. I might be getting that name wrong, but bear with me. He had written an article about some court case in Estonia that in. Let me see if I can pull it up here because yeah, here we go. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, he was talking about a court case that had occurred in Estonia that he, what was the headline that he had on it? Something about how damn, you know what? Can you hold on one second? I can actually pull this up. I don't want to get this wrong. Oh, yeah, here we go. Host deemed liable for user comments in Europe. That was the headline that they went with regarding this court case, Delphi AS v Estonia. And the problem is that the way the headline is worded, it makes you think that this applies throughout the European Union, which is not the case. This applies specifically to hosts in Estonia. So I pointed that out to them, figuring, hey, this
Can you
this
link
is
it real
just a
quick?
little I'm sorry. Oh yeah, you know what? Here, I have an archive link. Bah, 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 bah. Oh shit, where do I paste it?
Just in the general channel's
Uh,
fine.
oh, okay. Hang on. Let me pop over there real quick. Boo, boo, boo. Paste as plain text. Okay, there you go.
I interviewed Roy, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Hi, Roy. Schmuck.
Hosts deemed liable for user comments in Europe. Okay. It
Yeah.
says that this
So,
was, well, they deleted off everyone's name off of the headlines, didn't they?
they did that eventually. I think this was captured before
It
that.
says this article was written by Kendra Pring, though, not Roy Kalbeck. Is that wrong? This is
Mm,
this archive. It shows Kendra Pring.
hmm. You know what? It might have been Kendra Pring that wrote it, but I think it was Roy that I got into it with. Here, let me pick up where I left off. So I mentioned this. I think I might have talked about it on Twitter. Might have added them or something. And I told them, hey, this headline is a little ambiguous. This only applies in Estonia. Maybe you should think about changing it. And you know, obviously, maybe I could have been a little bit more diplomatic. I don't know. I mean, I have a way of coming off a little rough. I get that. But they decided to double down. They're like, no, we don't see that there's anything wrong with that. And I'm like, well, this kind of seems a little clickbaity. That's a little unethical. And ooh, boy, they really bristled at that. Um, and I think it was Roy that first replied to me. He might have replied on Reddit or Twitter. I don't remember which. And I got into it with him a little bit. We went back and forth. And then, what's his name? Oh fuck, who's the head retard over there?
I don't know. I probably knew 10 years ago, but
Oh God, I forget his name. And yeah, I would have known it. Fuck. Anyway, so yeah, the head guy over there,
Andrew
he
Auden,
suddenly got involved. Andrew Auden.
he was the
That isn't.
editor in
Oh
chief,
no. Oh
right?
no. Rutledge. Rutledge Tr.
Oh, Rutledge
He was
Doggett.
the. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so Rutledge, I guess he saw the comments going by, and he made some offhand remark about, "Hey, are you the guy who's been posting about this every single day, or just trying to make it out like I was some kind of a stalker or crazy or something?" And I pointed out, "Hey, I raised a couple of points here. I haven't been stalking you. I just happened to talk about this, and you guys have been doubling down and tripling down even. And honestly, it it really disappointed me that these guys they tried to build themselves as being like the ethical alternative in games journalism, and when it came right down to it, even on something as inconsequential as this one fucking headline, this one slightly ambiguous headline, they couldn't accept the idea that they were wrong. And not only that, they went out of their way to insult anyone who raised that point. And
Well,
mind you, I wasn't the
are
only
they
one.
wrong? Because I'm looking here at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and it says that the court that ruled on this was the European Court of Human Rights.
That
But it
Hey,
does
here,
it
can
says
you
the European Court of Human Rights in the case of Delphi versus Estonia, in a disappointing decision, the court affirmed that Estonian courts were entitled to hold an online news portal liable in defamation for comments submitted anonymously by readers. So it looks like
that
it
I
does.
believe
It basically, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that countries, essentially, right, that countries can punish websites for comments that users make. So it does apply
right.
to all
And
of
like
Europe, right?
no. That specific not the European Court of Human Rights' decision, but the decision of the Estonian court, that is what I was talking about. That
Yes,
applies
but the
specifically to
European Court
Estonia.
of Human Rights has ruled that courts can do that. They essentially
Yes,
ruled that member states of the European Union uh, do have
and
the
make
right
such
to
laws if they
punish, to make
want
such law.
to.
Yes, which is, I think, a totally fair reading of that, because that is true. Now,
Right,
how
but
did they
that's
word it
not
exactly? How did they word it exactly? They said
host
hosts deemed
deemed
liable
liable
for
for
users' comments in Europe. Yeah, I mean
which is
I
not
think
accurate.
that's
No, that's not accurate because if other countries in the European Union had passed similar laws, sure, that would be applicable. But that's not what happened here. You're taking one court case from Estonia and extrapolating that over the entire union. That's wrong.
because the European Union said that member states have the right to do that.
Yes.
Even though, like, we disagree with it and we think it's bad. Like, and so does the Electronic Frontiers Foundation.
Okay, well, here, think of it this way. There's an ambiguity in this title. There is clearly a disagreement over how it can be interpreted. They selected the most salacious title. It's clickbait, and that is
Yeah,
unethical.
I see what you're saying. I Because of how they phrased it, hosts deemed liable for users' comments in Europe. When a more accurate reading would be European Court of Human Rights rules that websites can be held accountable for users, essentially, that in member states where that's allowed, where that's the legal
Yes,
precedent. That's what is a more accurate
but
headline.
and that would be a huge headline, and that's why they wouldn't use it. In fact, I believe they actually made that point. That is way too wordy. We can't use that. Which, okay, fair enough, but still, you could have found a way to shorten that, to make it clearer. I didn't want to do that. To me, that tells me where their real motives lie.
Should I reach out to this guy, Rutledge Dugat? I mean, I got so many people for the book already. I probably wouldn't. I don't really care that
Honestly,
much.
yeah,
I
you
mean, I
know what?
care, but
Because
like, I don't. I
that's
don't know if I need to add like a 51st person or whatever.
well, I mean,
54th
it's
person.
it's a good idea just to get his perspective on it, even if
Oh,
his
not this
perspective turns out
specific
to be
thing. I don't
complete
like care
bullshit.
about the Europe thing from 10 years ago. I mean more
Oh,
about
well,
for the
whatever.
book, interviewing him for the book. But
Well, yeah, I mean, just well, I'm not talking about this specific issue, but I'm talking about what you were saying about setting up like alternative media and what his view on that was, how he viewed Tech Raptor's role.
yeah, I might shoot him a DM at some point. Um, how? I think you've already answered this one. How responsive to calls for reform do you think the Games Press was?
Um, Completely unresponsive. The only time that they initiated any reforms was when the FTC finally came down with the hammer, telling them that they needed to disclose any um, any kind of any kind of endorsements that they may have taken and that they didn't disclose. Consumers needed to know about that. That is really the only fundamental change that I saw. But anything else that didn't have the force of law behind it, they just ignored it.
If you were the editor-in-chief of a gaming website and some of your employees were accused of ethical violations, how would you have handled the situation?
I would have conducted an internal investigation to get to the truth of the matter. I would have stated openly, we are investigating this. Please give us time. Just try to let it simmer down. And then, publish my findings when and if well, not if, but when I've completed my investigation. Which, of course, that was done in the case of the so-called Five Guys, but nobody nobody bought it. they
Well, they
they just straight up
lied.
said, "Oh no,
Stephen
yeah."
Totillo
They just
straight up lied actually in his rebuttal and said that well he didn't review her game, therefore there can't be a conflict of interest. As if a
right.
conflict of interest could only take the form of a review rather than promotion of her game over 49 others or taking her side in the Polaris Game Jam scandal without critically examining the full story.
Yeah, you see what they did there.
Do you think there's still a role for good games journalism in the world? And if so, what does that look like
Um,
to you?
sh- sure. Honestly, it looks like what we're seeing now, which is just people playing games and streaming them, whether streaming them or recording videos. Honestly, and I've said this from the beginning, because I'm old enough to remember shareware. I think the best path forward is more demos. If you want to get consumers excited about your game, create a stripped down version of it, release that, and use that to get people excited about it. So that instead of just having streamers playing at full version, but only a handful of really big people are playing it, you can have a stripped down version that everyone can play and they can get in on it and go, oh, yeah, this really is something exciting. I want to buy.
In September 2014, it was revealed that nearly 150 games journalists from competing publications were in a mailing group called Game Journal Pros. What did you think of this revelation?
Wow, shocking. Just really no, it wasn't shocking at all. It didn't surprise me in the slightest. It just what really surprised me is that it leaked at all. That was hilarious.
Do you think it was unethical for them to be in a group like this?
Um, Insofar as it was just a way for them to reach out to other people in the industry, no. But when you're using it to coordinate uh, a message across what are supposed to be competing outlets, yeah, that That touches on some antitrust issues for me.
Do you have any thoughts on deep freeze?
Deep freeze, refresh my memory.
The website created by Bone Golem to catalog uh, ethical issues in games journalism. Deepfreeze.it.
Oh, okay.
Freya and
I
Daniela were the mascots.
I I I'm aware of its existence. Um, didn't really get involved in it. I thought it was a good idea, but that's about the extent of it.
Gotcha. In August 2015, Michael Koretsky, a regional director for the Society of Professional Journalists, hosted the SPJ Airplay Conference. The idea of the conference was to have journalistic ethics experts meet with Gamergate supporters to discuss their concerns about games journalism and the way the media covered Gamergate. The second half of the conference was interrupted by bomb threats, forcing the convention center to be evacuated. Do you have any thoughts on this event?
Yeah. Let's see where to begin. By and large, I thought it was a waste of time. Journalists and so-called ethics experts were never going to admit that they have any problems, as I said earlier. They have a class interest to defend, and their purpose there was primarily to debunk any idea that anyone had done any wrong whatsoever. The fact that someone called in a bomb threat, I mean, okay, I find that funny. I to some small extent. I probably shouldn't, but hey, there it is. Um, but yeah, mostly I just thought it was a massive waste of time.
Wait,
I
did you watch
I
it?
didn't really I didn't watch it. I
I
ended
could
up
tell.
catching the I caught the highlights that people had posted, and that was about it for me. I couldn't stomach the rest.
But so this is perhaps the problem with viewing things from a Marxist framework, even if you're doing it in a video game context, right? Because they did actually say that the Lynn Walsh, the president of the Society of Professional Journalists, she was well, she wasn't the president at the time, but she became the president after, and Ren LaForme from the Poynter Institute, they actually they actually agreed with the GamerGate people. They were like, yeah, these are very serious issues in the games journalism industry. Like,
Okay, but did anything come of that?
I mean, maybe, but not in the way that people
Yeah.
think. No, I don't think that like Polygon was like, oh, you know what? The SPJ is right. We gotta create an ethics policy now, or
Well, then
whatever.
there you go.
Name a site. But I don't. But I think it actually was extraordinarily important for historical reasons. Like it's like one of the
Not
most like.
no, not even.
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
okay,
you say that, but it proved that Gamergate was right. It proved that large numbers of people think that Gamergate was covered very poorly by the media, and it
proved it
also
to who exact? No, no,
to
no.
anyone who
Proved it
wants
to
to know
who
the truth,
exactly?
anyone who wants to know the truth, and it's also a good
Who?
resource. It's also a good resource for this book. It even there's like even a whole documentary that just came out like last month about airplay. A whole documentary that's like 6 hours long about airplay and
Yeah,
Gamergate.
but at the end of the day, it's not going to change anybody's mind. Whoever has a class interest in disavowing GG, they're not changing their mind. And people who have their own interest in being pro GG, they're not going to change their mind over this. It changed nothing. It's
I
a fart in the wind.
it didn't change games journalism probably. Well, it did it did in like one very real way, right? Like the Kunkel Awards that came out of it.
The Kunkel Awards. Yeah,
Yeah,
didn't pay attention.
I don't think a whole lot of people did because well, they came out at a point when like people were had already lost interest in games journalism and the industry had started dying. But I think it really was like a good idea, and I think it is a good idea still if somebody wants to go that route and do something like that in the future, include whether the SBJ or a different organization, um, which is to highlight examples of good games journalism and reward the people behind that and create incentives for them to do better journalism in the future.
Honestly, I think the best incentive to do that is to just patronize outlets that are honest, just straight up, and not pay attention to the ones that aren't.
Why do you think the media largely didn't cover GamerGate? Or sorry, cover SPJ Airplay, I should say. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, because it was a completely meaningless event. There was really no way for them to, honestly, to make any use of it. Like, who gives a flying fuck about some the SPJ? What audience is going to know what that is? How do I make money off that?
Have you seen any other GamerGate panels, such as my panels at Arch Anime or NatsuCon, or the South by Southwest Save Point panel?
Nah, I didn't watch any of those.
Some people believe that GamerGate should have ended after SPJ Airplay. What did you think?
No, the issues were still there. People were still pissed about them. They were still going to talk about them. That's absurd.
Do you think the GamerGate banner should have been used to take on gaming industry issues outside of just games journalism?
Such as,
Well, anything people wanted to do, I guess, right? You could say microtransactions in games that are widespread, including games that people are paying full price for, or the releasing of extremely buggy games with this idea that, oh, we'll just patch it later, so who cares?
well, I think some people did try to do that to a certain extent, and they largely got shouted down for it. Uh, that goes back to what I said earlier about people having that conflict over the so-called larger cultural war issues or what have you. There were just some people who wanted to stick strictly to these well-defined ethical issues, to censorship, just a certain core set of issues, and anything outside of that, they were gonna they were gonna give people shit about that. But that doesn't mean people didn't try.
Some Gamergate supporters believed that pressuring advertisers to pull out would be a good way to convince gaming publications to initiate ethical reforms. What did you think of this strategy?
I thought it was hilarious. It To some small extent, it could have worked if there was sufficient coordination. But as far as like reforming, only I again, I don't think anyone would ever really reform. They might make trivial changes just to try to satisfy the mob, get everything to calm down, and then quietly, months later, go back to business as usual, because that's usually how it works. But still, I wish people had tried.
I see. I don't know. I want to talk about the Marxist framing you're using. Um, I don't think it's. I think that there can be value in analyzing things this way, possibly, like historical events, like as long as it's like one component of history that you're looking at. Like I'm looking at this specific thing through a Marxist lens, and that gives me like maybe some sort of unique insight I might have missed otherwise. But that doesn't mean that the Marxist lens is true. You could get other insights by looking at it through like a libertarian lens, through a feminist lens, through a conservative lens, through any number of different lenses, and you could get like
True,
information that you would
but
might have missed otherwise. So I don't think like the Marxist lens is inherently like the best way to go about it.
it's no, it really isn't. But in this case, it happens to be accurate. Uh, like I said, I frame this in a class warfare sense because it happens to be applicable. And I like using Marxist terminology to describe it because it really pisses people off to have their own rhetoric thrown back at them. And people who frequently try to present themselves as being Marxists don't really know how to debate. They don't understand rhetoric. And when somebody comes along that can take their vocabulary and throw it back at them, they don't know how to react. And that's kind of funny.
Were you involved in the artistic freedom side of Gamergate?
Um, no, not directly. No. I mean, obviously, uh, I supported Comicsgate. I supported Metalgate, but no, I didn't take any direct action.
Okay. Do you want me to skip the artistic freedom questions, or do you want to go through them?
Oh, we can go through them. Why not?
What do you think of arguments about video games causing or reinforcing real-world sexist attitudes?
Yeah, that was bullshit back when that was bullshit back in the 80s when they were trying to say D&D causes kids to engage in Satan worship or what have you. It was bullshit back then. It's bullshit now. Um, yeah, fuck them.
Yeah, the next question's about what did you think of the attempt to link video games to violence and/or censor games in the past, like Jack Thompson.
Yeah, it's a tired argument that gets reintroduced every 7 to 10 years or so by people who are really hoping that everyone will have forgotten about prior arguments and won't know how to address this, and they can finally push their little agenda through. And it never quite works out because there's always some guy out there who remembers, oh, hey, didn't we talk about this just a couple of years ago? And figures out how to shoot their arguments down. So yeah, we're going to be having this argument for a very, very long time, despite the fact that it has no merit whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there probably will be moral panics in the future about video games. There's always moral panics about something, but I don't
Oh, of course.
I don't I think well the violence people basically completely lost, right? The courts have ruled that they can't ban games even if they wanted to because it's illegal. It's against the Constitution. Um, so they've lost, assuming there's not some weird reversal in the Supreme Court for some reason. Um, but
Well, hey, I mean, you never know. I mean,
and the
Roe v.
studies haven't borne out what the about violence because it's just not true, right? Video games don't cause violence. We know this now.
And
Um,
until just a short time ago, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, and now it's not. So
Yeah, but
never
it's
say
not.
never.
There's everything because the problem that the violence against video games people had is that their arguments were factually incorrect, right?
That has never stopped anybody from making a bad argument ever.
No, but it basically killed their argument. There's so many different things happened, right? That made it like so we're probably not going to see, at least for quite a while, a renewed, consistent effort, concerted effort to like ban video games because they're too violent. We're really not because like one, too many people play them. Two, the the First Amendment is very strong, and three, the studies are all in one direction. They're all showing that it's not real. Now the
While
sexism people, right? They don't rely on studies. What they rely on is something else. They rely on like this
yeah,
philosophical worldview instead, and this philosophical worldview says that, and it's an unfalsifiable worldview, or at least maybe it could be falsified depending on how they word things, but it's basically an unfalsifiable worldview that people encounter things in life, and sometimes the things that they encounter in life, including things they encounter in movies and video games and books, those things can make them worse people, right? That's the fundamental premise that the social justice warriors are operating under, and therefore we need to like, therefore the developers have a social responsibility not to make games like that anymore. That's fundamentally like their argument.
but okay, and that can be their argument all they want. Yeah, art does affect people, but by telling authors that they have to censor themselves, you're robbing the viewers, the readers of these artworks of their own moral agency. You're basically saying that they have no moral agency of their own. They're fucking children. They have to be sheltered from the world. Fuck that noise.
Some political activists believed that using social media campaigns to demand artists change artistic elements of their work was a good thing, such as hashtag change the cover. What did you think of this tactic?
They're a bunch of assholes and they can go fuck themselves.
Where do you think the lines are between criticism and advocacy of censorship?
Uh, you can say that a cover is really shitty. I think this cover is really shitty. I'm not going to buy your shitty product. That's fair. But when you say this cover is shitty, I'm not going to buy your shitty product unless you make the following changes, or else I'm going to go to your advertisers. I'm going to ruin your life. I'm going to destroy your business. That's crossing a line.
What about when GamerGate people in Operation Disrespectful Nod pointed out that one of the writers at Gawker was extremely pro-bullying and advocated for bullying people, and they attacked Gawker and cost them money for one of their writers expressing this opinion.
What about it?
Isn't that anti-free speech?
No, he can still say whatever the fuck he wants, but at the same time, people are also free to contact their advertisers and ask them, "Do you want to be a part of this? Is this what you is this what you want to promote?" Now, I'm not saying that Gawker can't go subscription only. I'm not saying that they can't profit at all. But I am saying that if you're going to be in the business of selling a space where people are going to advertise ostensibly to consumers of their products, you're going to need to align with their beliefs to some extent.
Doesn't that, by having Gawker lose money because of their pro-bullying opinion, doesn't that create a chilling effect where less people are willing to express similar sentiments in the future out of fear of backlash?
Yeah, I would say that it does, but that was already the case in any media that is driven by advertising. You are beholden to your corporate masters, and if they don't like something, you're not going to say something.
Do you have any thoughts on the removal of content from Japanese or other foreign games when they are localized?
Yeah, I think that's bullshit. It's why I advocated you really should learn. If you like Japanese games, learn Japanese because that's really the only way you're going to get it unfiltered, at least at the moment. Although there are certainly some people that are trying to make sure that even Japanese people can enjoy their own fucking games.
How bad is the censorship of Japanese games when they're localized today?
Uh, there are people who are inserting their own personal politics, not maybe not necessarily games, but anime.
Well, anime is
There
notoriously
are
bad for this. They have like the worst
yes.
reputation ever. I thought that games got better after the torrential downpour campaign. I really thought they did.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. I've got my own particular set of games that I play. Not a lot of Japanese titles. Um, so maybe I'm not the best person to ask about that.
Some critics of GamerGate have argued that the movement was mostly or entirely right wing. Do you think that was accurate?
Fuck no. Just based on my own experience in my little corner of the universe, we had all kinds of people show up at our meetings, some of whom were left leaning, some centrist, some right leaning, and some people who just didn't express any preference whatsoever. Because video games cuts across the political spectrum. It's something that everybody enjoys, and that's also part of why this thing got as big as it did. Uh, because these people made the mistake of coming after something that so many people actually not only actually liked but had practical experience with. It's not like where if you go after guns and say, "Oh, we got to seize all the guns," people are out there murdering each other. Maybe the average person doesn't have experience with guns and might buy those arguments, but if you make it about video games or oh, I don't know, we need to ban cars because cars are murder machines. People are going to push back on that because they have practical experience to the contrary.
Now, Kotaku in action, it didn't start out this way, but I think it's safe to say, maybe you'll disagree. I think it's safe to say that it became more conservative over time. Is that right?
Uh, I wouldn't say that it became more conservative, but I would say that it started covering so many cultural war topics that people would have that impression. And then primarily because those topics were linked to people on the left. It's their turn. Okay. Back in the 80s, it was the right that was doing the censorship. So it's their turn. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Well, Kotaku in action is not necessarily like super right wing. Like I think that they probably lean like slightly to the right on average. But Kotaku in Action 2 is kind of a different story. It's the spin-off group by people who were mad at Kotaku in Action 1, the original Kotaku in Action, because
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
that they were. I don't. Are you familiar with Kotaku in Action 2?
Yeah, I'm sub there.
Okay. Which one? The Reddit or the website? Kotaku in Action 2.win.
Uh, the Reddit, I never really got around to
Okay. Well, I'm
migrating
not
to
talking about
the
the Reddit. I'm
website.
talking about the website because the
Okay.
Kotaku in Action 2.win. Um, I think it's safe to say that they're like a pretty right wing community. They don't. Most of them don't seem to think the election was real,
I
and
mean,
they're like
okay,
diehard.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I can provide sources for this if you want. I'm not gonna like just talk shit.
I don't know.
You want me to link the sources now, or just go on their site and you'll
No,
like.
oh no, I'll take your word for it.
Okay, but like, um, and obviously like that's a pretty small community compared to like GamerGate as a whole, and even Kotaku in Action as a whole. But like it is like worth pointing out, I think, for the sake of fairness, that like there were right wing people involved.
Yeah, and
Well, and like because like the media says all the time, nonstop, GamerGate caused Trump. GamerGate is the reason that we have the rise of fascism and all this stuff, right? That's what the media is always running with, nonstop, constantly. Um,
well, okay, well, if that's their narrative, all of these issues originated from the left. So if everybody's being pushed to the right, who do we blame for that?
that's my argument.
Okay, then there we are.
uh, do you want to talk about your political views or philosophy?
um, no. Honestly, my views have changed over the years. At this point, I consider myself a nationalist. I tend to view everyone who classifies themselves as either left or right as being hopelessly imperialist, and I don't want to engage with them whatsoever. Fuck them.
Well, you can skip this question if you want. But the next question was, have your politics changed since Gamergate or due to Gamergate?
Oh, no. I would say that my politics changed over time just from the process of getting older, having more experience with the world, and GG was just kind of a blip on the radar that just confirmed a lot of what I already knew. Now, maybe, sorry, maybe for other people that's different. I know a lot of people came into this in their early 20s, so for them, this might all be new, and that's cool. But for me, it was just par for the course.
Are you okay with gaming sites criticizing games through a political or religious lens, such as a Marxist, feminist, Christian, or other lens?
Insofar as they disclose that fact, yeah, I don't see the problem. I mean, what there's already oh god, what was it called? Christ-centered gamer, or I think that's what it was called. Definitely not a site for me, but the they obviously feel that there is a market for that. So yeah, go for it. But just be honest about what your bias is. Um, Obviously, some people have a problem with that because they want to slip that bias in there without people noticing, and that's unethical.
Do you think it's unethical if Kotaku reviews a game and they're not upfront? Because Kotaku, in theory, isn't a feminist gaming site, right? In theory, they're just sort of like well, I guess they're really, I don't know what they call themselves, but they're basically a gutter rag. Um, and I don't just like say that because I don't like dislike them, but like that's kind of like they were part of the Gawker Media Network, and like that's what their thing is, right? Gawker's upfront about that. They were we cover the news that everyone thinks shouldn't be covered and that is kind of garbage and clickbait bullshit. But like we're open and upfront about us doing that. So if you don't like it, go fuck
I
yourself.
don't.
That's sort of like
I mean,
their
Okay, that's kind of Gawker's position as they're a tabloid media, but I don't know that Kotaku in Action was ever very upfront about that.
no Kotaku,
They,
not Kotaku Action.
I'm sorry,
You said Kotaku in
or I
Action.
mean, oh god damn it, yeah, but yeah, I don't know that they were ever very upfront about that. They tried to present themselves as still being Uh, Even though they were part of Gawker Media Group, they were still kind of their own thing, and they were a semi-serious outlet.
Yeah, that's true. They did definitely um, try to present themselves in a more serious way. Trying to find what Kotaku's original mission statement was, but I'm not even sure they had one up until a couple years ago. Like now they claim that they're an inclusive site.
Whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean.
Yeah. But
Sorry, whenever I hear people talk about inclusion, I think of imperialist bullshit and I reach for my gun.
I'm just trying to see what their original. Yeah, I don't think it exists. I don't. Maybe they didn't have one prior to. Okay, yeah, maybe. So that's what they say today, but I don't know if they were saying that back then. But Kotaku, if they were reviewing a game and they said, and they weren't upfront about being like being doing so through a political lens, and they said, hey, look, I just think that this game is sexist. Is that wrong for them to do?
Based on, based on my impression that they were trying to present themselves as a serious and maybe not necessarily unbiased outlet, but certainly as one that wasn't necessarily feminist or what have you, yeah, I would say that's unethical.
Do you think there can be any value in analyzing games or other works of art through a political lens?
Sure. If insofar as art is intimately tied up with politics, okay, one of my favorite series is Dune, and that is pretty much the best way to describe that is it's a Greek it's a Greek epic. It just happens to be set in space, and they cover timeless issues of the nature of power. And as long as art can as long as art can communicate ideas like that, then sure, there's definitely room to analyze it from a political perspective. But I think in most cases, when you see these people try, they're just trying to shoehorn in politics on something that maybe is just mindless entertainment.
Some people say that GamerGate was the quote first battle of the culture war. Do you have any thoughts on that framing?
Yeah, it was the first battle for them. It's when they became culturally aware, or I should say politically aware. This sort of thing has been going on since the 80s. Like I brought up the thing with D&D. Uh, these sort of moral panics, they come and go in waves, and this is certainly no different. This just happens to be one. This I would say that this is probably the first moral panic that has occurred since the internet was created, or at least, rather, I should say, since the internet was open to the public, more or less, in 1997. So for many people, this is their first exposure to these kind of politics. But no, it's definitely been ongoing for a very long time.
What do you think of the framing of GamerGate being a response to a moral panic about video games?
Um, mm, it's hard for me to agree with that just because, again, I know that this started with the reaction to the Zoe post and people trying to cover for her. Um, and knowing that a lot of these outlets were just running these articles as clickbait. And yeah, they certainly have their own political opinions and they're perfectly happy to share them. But I don't think that for them it was strictly about that.
What do you think of the framing of GamerGate as a battle between those who believed in classical liberal values like artistic freedom, freedom of speech, and pluralism, and those who didn't?
Yeah, again, I don't think it gets that deep with these people. I think on the one hand, there are people who are trying to protect a friend. On the other hand, there are people who are trying to make a buck off people who are getting pissed off over this. Um, You know what? Now that I think about it, um, maybe if we look away from moderators and journalists and we instead look at GG and anti-GG, then maybe in that sense it's true. There were people for whom this really was about that.
But it seems like I don't think I'll push back here because I think that the games journalists, it's yes they were corrupt, yes they were trying to protect a friend, and prom- they wanted to they wanted to stifle the GamerGate discussion from happening because like they were implicated in the scandal. But they also did have ideological biases. They very much were all a part, or most of them, certainly the anti-GamerGate journalists, they were part of this ideological clique of people who were like really on the cutting edge of the social justice warrior community, basically. And that's why they said and did the things that they did. That's why Devin Wilson wrote his article um, creating a list of rules for game developers to follow, saying that you had to make games less violent, you had to make them less sexy, you had to make them less competitive, you had to stop viewing fun as being all that important, all this stuff. And also like why they decided to say gamers are racist, gamers are sexist, gamers are over, gamers are an embarrassment, right? That's what they think. That's what they thought. Because of these ideological blinders that they have onto the world. And
Sure,
uh,
sure, that is their political view, but at the end of the day, it still has to be something they can sell. And it just so happened that in this case, their views were something that were going to outrage a lot of people and get them a lot of clicks.
but like some
These
people
two,
believe in those views too, like, and that's also the audience they wanted to build, right? Kotaku wanted they wanted
they
the
no,
virgin neckbeards. Well, I don't know about Kotaku, but like I guess like other sites, make Kotaku, yeah, probably Kotaku too. They wanted like these so-called neckbeard gamers to stop being their audience, and instead for it to be a bunch of like enlightened college kids who are all talking about feminism all day. Like that's what they wanted, right?
yeah, but that's not the audience they had, and more to the point, that was not an audience that was going to make them money.
Well, that's a bad business move on their part, but like I think that like that is what like a lot of the maybe not the executives, they didn't want that. In fact, Leigh Alexander even said that she almost got fired because her article was so poorly received, and she barely held on to her job. That's what she claims. I don't know if that's true or not,
Press X to doubt on that.
but like clearly the writers saw things that way. Some of them did, at least the game journalists.
Okay.
And I think that the fact that they were ideologically biased explains way more of this, actually, than like the Marxist framing of they had a class interest as journalists. I think that
Nah.
no, very much so. I think that this ideological worldview that they had adopted that is anti-pluralistic and is illiberal, I think that that informed their actions. And an informed action, they have multiple different reasons and incentives to do things, but like one of the big ones is this ideological worldview where they think that competition and discussion and debate in the realm of ideas should be stifled and should be significantly smaller and shrunk down to exclude views that they don't like. And they use the same thing, the same ideology all throughout society, right? It's not just games journalism and journalism. These same people with the same ideological mindset, they're the ones who are the ones getting people banned from college campuses and harassing students and doing all this crazy shit on campuses. And they're the ones who are creating like entire organizations that are advocating for like these weird social justice views that they believe in. And like that's fine, they can do that, but they shouldn't be trying to exclude other views in the process. And they are. These are the same people calling for censorship on social media. Um, I don't. It's not just like journalists as a class have an interest. The journalists in this case, in the GamerGate case, they were social justice warriors. They had a social justice warrior mindset. They didn't believe in having discussions. They believed in shutting down discussions. And that same
The
mindset has taken form all throughout our society with people who don't have the journalist class interest, right?
these views are not mutually exclusive.
No, they're
Okay,
not.
go to go back to the whole blind men with the elephant thing. Uh, I don't. I'm not entirely disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that from my perspective, I don't think that they. Yes, they want to push their ideology, but I don't think that that's necessarily their primary motive. And to get back to the you say in terms of class interest, I'm not talking about journalists as if they were a class. No, I'm saying that journalists are in fact an arm of the bourgeoisie. They share a common class and they identify with that class.
Well, that's just like bad Marxism, though, right? I'm gonna hit you because
Okay, go ahead.
to them, the proletariat are people who, fuck, what would be the their it would their whether or not someone's a proletariat or a bourgeoisie person, depends on their relationship to the means of production, right? It doesn't depend
Right.
upon it doesn't depend upon what they what their specific role or function is within that bureaucratic system, within the hierarchy of society.
Right, but here we're talking about people who work for people who own the presses and they publish whatever the fuck they're told to publish. These people are identifying with the bourgeoisie. They can LARP all they want, like they're the vanguard of the proletariat, like they're fucking Marxist revolutionaries or what have you. But at the end of the day, they work for the empire.
Did you interact with any anti-Gamergate people?
Um, Honestly, no, not very much. We might. Oh, you know what? We probably argued a little bit on Twitter, but that was about the extent of it.
None of them came to the meetup?
Um, I think one person tried. They like contacted me, and I don't remember what came of that. I certainly don't remember anyone ever showing up.
Oh, I've got a correction to issue, by the way. I might as well do it now.
Okay, go ahead.
Turns out Leon Gunsteal was correct. Arthur Chu's "It Ends Tonight" statement was made about Gamergate in DC. It was not made about Airplay. My bad.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, well, I thought he made it about Airplay, but he actually made the comment in response to Gamergate in DC, the meetup. Yeah.
Well, that's a reasonable mistake. I mean, we're talking about events that occurred 10 years ago. I mean, fuck.
Yeah. Did you ever change anyone's mind about Gamergate?
No, absolutely not. I think people came into this with their, like I said, with their own class interest, and people were just shouting past each other.
Sorry, I kind of broke my desk slightly. So I'm trying to fix that
Well,
while I.
that's always good.
All right, are you friends with anyone on the other side?
Um, Not that I know of. Mind you, that's not it. It's not like I've deliberately excluded anybody, but nobody has ever reached out.
Well, I could change that. I know a fuck ton of anti-Gamergate people. A lot of them are in my Discord for this project, and because I like hanging out and debating people.
They're all assholes. Thank you.
How could the conversation about Gamergate have been more productive?
I don't know that it could. People weren't going to change their mind. Everyone had pretty much solidified their opinions very early on, and after that, like I said, they were just shouting past each other. Um, yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so difficult to change somebody's mind on something like this? I have changed people's minds at least once. I've moved several people into more moderate positions. Um, but I've only like completely reversed somebody's mind in one case. Why do you think it's so difficult for?
People, well, people are very set in their ways, and to be honest, you know what? I don't have an easy answer for that one. If I did, I'd probably be using it myself.
You'd be writing your own book.
There we go.
Do you have any thoughts on not your shield?
I think it was important for people to across the spectrum to stand up and say, stop using me as your shield. So yeah, it was a good thing. Um, don't really have any other thoughts beyond that.
The GamerGate discussion was widely censored online. Why do you think that? Why do you think that was?
Well, I know this came up in earlier discussions. I forget which interview you did, but yeah, certainly some forum moderators were getting tired of getting mass spammed with reports. So I can understand people wanting to censor it on that basis, especially if you're a volunteer mod, just doing it for the tendies. But yeah,
Let me ask an interesting question that I don't ask anybody.
okay.
What do you think of somethingawful.com?
It wasn't really my kind of humor, but I am from that era. Um, I'm not a fan of goons or what they became, but I definitely knew more than a few people who used to browse there. Um, I'm more of a 4chan guy myself. That's just me personally. Um, but certainly there's space on the internet for them. Maybe in the trash can, I don't know, but I think the internet would be worse off without them. There needs to be a place where people can post edgy humor, and if that's something awful, then yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that their role in the GamerGate conversation was not been explored enough by anybody?
Insofar as nobody's really explored the troll side of things, yes, because I think we both know that they were actively egging everybody on and just yucking it up the all fucking day.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I just want to specify for the book, not everybody on Something Awful was opposed to GamerGate or even trying to troll people. Um, but it does seem like a lot of the trolls did come from there, though not also just from there, like Baphomet 2 and Kiwi Farms and Cow and the Bill Wagner crew and the GNAA
Right.
and like there were like and like the group that Avius was a part of, where they would fuck with people on Skype. Like there were a lot of different trolls who had different motivations.
True.
But I do I'll never get an answer. Like we'll never know probably just how extensively the Something Awful and Goon community, well, the Goon community was responsible for the harassment. Like they because those people are never going to talk to someone like me, and they'll probably never talk to anybody about this publicly because that's not their style. They're a very secretive, private group. They don't like to make their stuff known. So we'll probably never know unless like there's some like log leak of their chat logs or something from like 10 years from now or something. Just how much they were the ones harassing the people and blaming Gamergate for it. If at all,
Well,
right? I shouldn't just like assume that they're guilty.
I mean, honestly, oh well. I mean, we're just not going to get that part of the story.
While we're on the topic of harassment, why do you think some people claimed that Gamergate was about harassment or hating women?
Because they viewed they were looking at this through the lens of this is about a guy attacking his ex-girlfriend. It's a jilted ex-boyfriend lashing out at his ex-girlfriend, and therefore everyone who's getting involved, they're just participating in his narrative. And I can see their point, but that's where it started. That's not where it ended.
Well, and like to be clear, like I'm not even sure he was like attacking her. He was just trying to like expose. Well, I mean, I guess you could call it attacking her, but like
He
he was trying to
he was
expose that
venting.
he thought that yeah he was venting basically, and also he even like defended her a bit too, like the burgers and fries joke. he says specifically that he doesn't think that that should be used for slut shaming at all because he doesn't believe in slut shaming. He says that he does believe in infidelity shaming though, and that's why he's perfectly fine with people infidelity shaming. Well, he didn't say perfectly
That's a
fine
bit
with,
of a
but
that's a very, very nuanced take, but okay.
um, but I mean, there's actually right now. I don't know if I want to talk about this. Um, are you familiar with like the Destiny drama recently?
I've kind of been reading about it on a certain New Zealand website that you may be aware of, but yes.
Ah, a New Zealand website. Okay. Uh, well, the some people are now trying to say. I've seen a couple people say. I'm not going to name names, but it seems like a couple people are trying to promote this idea that Destiny is trying to weaponize his audience against his former lover, when that doesn't even seem to be true, actually. Like, people are talking about what happened. Like, look, he's been a bit irresponsible with it, maybe. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna glaze him too hard, and even he'd probably admit that. Um, when he announced like a big announcement, and the big announcement is, of course, the recent drama, which I'm not going to get into for the. I don't want it in the book necessarily, unless like it you want to take it there,
Right.
we can. But
Mm,
people online, including other content creators, a couple of them were like, "Oh, he's trying to weaponize his audience against his former lover," when like no, like they've both made public comments about what happened. And like it's not even like that bad. Like sometimes people just aren't compatible with each other, right? It just fucking happens to most people on Earth, right? Most people on Earth aren't with the first person they ever got together with. Um,
right.
Most people are going to go through trials and tribulations to find the right person for them, or to find someone who that they can like are collaborative enough with, are compatible enough with. So like it's not even like like nothing. It's not like there were like any abuse alleged or anything like that. Like nothing serious. It was just like they weren't compatible. And then like she made some comments about it, and he made some comments about it, and he's a bigger streamer. But so like oh they're like oh well he's trying to weaponize his audience, but it's like not really actually, because he's been like pretty careful, and he even explicitly said don't allow he's not going to allow people to talk shit about her in his chat or anything like that. Um, he's basically asked people to not go after her or anything like that. But it does bother me when I see some of these content creators like trying to frame it that way, and like it's kind of like the beginning of GamerGate was too. You can see like a
Yeah,
parallel between like what's he's currently going through, and what she is too. Like I'm not like I don't not taking sides or whatever the fuck. Like I'll still go on both their shows. Um, in fact, I'm probably gonna go on Destiny's
mi-
show, sometime soon, hopefully. Um,
mind you, he's a smug little fuck, so find it hard to I find it hard to empathize with him. At the same time, though, I don't think that this is actually going to blow up the way GG did, because there's no overarching group of people that are going to align behind either side and make it blow up. So to me, this is just personal drama.
yeah,
I don't see it going anywhere.
and people are like, oh no, you shouldn't be allowed to talk about it, but like people are making um like very serious like claims against, not even claims against him, right? They're like vague posting about like, well, Destiny seems like he's a massive asshole and he's gonna send his audience after Melina, when there's like no evidence of this at all. And it just like bothers me that there's like this fake narrative being out there, including by people I know are promoting this narrative. And they know it's not true, or they should know it's not true, but they're doing it because it gets them clicks or whatever.
See?
Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
look, he's obviously not a very emotional person generally, right? That's why I guess you called him. What was it? A gnome? You called him or something? Or
No, no.
no? Okay. Oh,
You invented that whole
oh,
class, but
maybe I did.
okay.
Sorry. Sorry. You said that he's like not empathetic, right?
I find it hard to empathize with him.
Okay. Yeah. Look. I've seen a lot of the cases where he's gotten involved with people publicly and privately, but publicly, I guess. And I think he look, he's not like the most like he's not he doesn't have like the touch of Mother Teresa, you know, where he's like super much like an
That's
emotional
the
guy.
understatement of the year.
But I feel like he's actually like if you look at like the specific incidents involving him and when he's gotten involved with like other people, it like mostly has been actually I think like people attacking him pretty unfairly and him basically just like defending himself. I
No.
I've like seen like several like the stuff with like Lav, but dude, I don't want this. Whatever. We just this is not GamerGate
We're
stuff.
getting
Yeah.
yeah, we're getting way into the weeds at this point. Let's
All right.
bring it back.
What do you think of the studies about GamerGate and harassment, such as the Women Action Media study and the Newsweek/Brandwatch study?
I'm sure I read them at the time, but sorry, I don't remember.
0.66%. Does that ring any bells?
Oh, 0.66% of tweets were contained actual harassment.
Uh,
Is that
that's
is
not
that the
really the
figure?
methodology they used. It was something different, but it was 0.66% of the accounts on the GG Auto Blocker had engaged in harassment.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that was the Women Action Media study. The Brandwatch study, just throw it in the trash, basically. Though, I mean, like, I don't know if it's good data or not. They never released the full data set, but Newsweek did misrepresent the data and lie. In fact, we actually have them on proof, on record, as having misrepresented the data. On record in the sense that there's proof of it, sorry. Not in the sense that they've been owned up to it, because they haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think of the Gamergate anti-harassment patrol?
Um, I mean, if it makes you feel better, that you want to go find people who are engaged in harassment and tell them to stop, okay, you do you. You go play Batman. But at the end of the day, trolls are going to troll.
How important to you was it that bad actors were condemned?
For purposes of ideological consistency, I would say, yeah, you do have to condemn your own people. And uh, I can get into that with an example, and I'm pretty sure I brought this one up. Um, Brad Wardell, he, I would say he was nominally pro GG. Would you characterize
Uh,
that as
yeah, he didn't like talk about it every single day, but he did I think publicly support the movement a few times. And like he obviously was very friendly with the Gamergate people on Twitter.
right? So my issue with him, uh, I'm I'm a big time fan of Star Control, uh, and I'm a big time fan of Star Control. And at one point, what was it about? I forget how many years back. He became involved in the liquidation of Accolade's assets, which included the trademark for Star Control. He kind of presented himself as a fan, and he wanted to do his own sequel. And so he acquired Accolade's assets in that liquidation, and he wanted to proceed with his own little sequel, which would become what was it, Star Control Origins. The problem was, as he started development, he began adding assets from the first two games, which, as it turned out, he didn't actually have the rights to. And there's some dispute as to whether he didn't know this because he didn't read what exactly he was buying, or if he was just really being malicious about it. I don't think we'll ever get an answer to that. But um, this resulted in legal action against him by Paul Ritchie and Fred Ford, the original developers of Star Control. And it got really ugly where people were lashing out at Paul and Fred as if they were just complete assholes that had no business filing a suit. This was frivolous on their part. And you could really see the sides forming where people who were pro GG were piling in behind Brad simply because he was one of their guys. He was on their side, and they didn't just want to give him the benefit of the doubt. They were just standing behind him because, hey, he's our guy, even after Paul and Fred came out and published like their original contracts with Accolade, where you could see how the rights would revert to them if certain payments hadn't been made over time, making it clear that they had the rights to this stuff. They were not part of this sale. He was fucking up. Now, fortunately, eventually, these two guys, I mean, Paul and Fred and Brad, they all got together and they hashed it out, and everything worked out. But people were still complete assholes throughout this whole controversy. They were picking sides on the basis of this guy spoke in favor of my position, therefore I'm going to back him come hell or high water, and that I just found to be totally disgusting. And I pointed that fact out repeatedly on Reddit and got nothing but shit for it. And to me, that it was deeply disappointing uh, to see people behave like that. I mean, I know I shouldn't be surprised, but it was still disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know enough about this specific situation to say too much.
I mean, hey, that's fine. It's honestly an ancillary issue, but to me, it ideological consistency is important. You can't just defend somebody just because they say they're on your side and they make the right noises, because that is a major tactic in politics. You get people who blow into town, they say all the right things, they make all the right noises, they get your vote, and then they disappear and they go do whatever the empire demands of them. So you can't be that naive.
The Empire,
Yeah,
the
I know that sounds really
bourgeoisie,
fucking gay.
or well,
Yeah, it
yeah, I don't. You said
I
you don't
know
want to
it
talk about any
sounds really
politics, so
pretentious. It I know it sounds pretentious and gay to frame it that way, but at the same time, it's catchy and it cuts right to the point that there are some people in this world who just believe that they have a right to rule over you, and other people who do not, and you fall into one camp or the other.
I'm thinking this is gonna sound really fucking stupid because it's off topic. YouTube
Go
recently
for it.
changed the way hashtags work. So now having a hashtag in my title, hashtag GamerGate, I think it actually hurts the books showing up, the video showing up in the search results.
Okay.
So I'm debating if I
Huh.
should take it out and just take the hashtag off.
Yeah, just take the hash mark off and just leave it as Gamergate.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not like
it's
people aren't going to find
annoying
it.
because like all my old
Well, I mean,
videos, all my old
well,
interviews have the hashtag in it, and now YouTube it'll promote them, but because the reason for this is that they want to start using hashtags as this different way. They want to make like hashtags their own like separate thing, like where it's a separate type of search result than the normal search results. That way, like people can share shorts and stuff like that using hashtags easier, kind of like TikTok, you know. But also some long form videos too. But the problem is that because they changed things this way, it it's fucking up the normal search results. So now, if people just search GamerGate without the hashtag, these videos aren't showing up. Well, they
mm,
occasionally are, but not always. Most
honestly, I consider YouTube to be a dying platform, so I don't really keep up with all the minutiae of what they're fucking up today,
Me
but it
either.
doesn't
I
shock
only
me.
just noticed it because my viewership's down, and I'm like trying to look into why, and then I'm like, oh fuck, they just made this big change, and I searched myself on the hashtag GamerGate on the hashtag, and that does appear to be the case. That the change is what's fucking it up. Now that's not the only reason, like necessarily, but like that does seem to be possibly a factor. Also, it could be that I released 30 hours worth of GamerGate content over the course of like 10 days, and so people don't have full-time jobs to go through all this shit.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been able to catch uh, like a couple
I've also
interviews that you did, and even then, I only was able to catch parts of it because like I'm listening to it like on my way back from work or something.
yeah, I've also not been self-promoting them as much as I used to. Well, I used to post them on Kia and Kia too, um, because it's on topic, right?
Right,
And they're cool. Like the mods and stuff are cool about that. Um, but I think because I was doing like an interview a day practically, right, for a while, and
right.
I think some of the users got upset that I was literally like posting like 6 or 7 a week. Um, and some people even said
Oh,
something
but
like,
that's
"Hey, you're self-promoting too hard," and so I cut back.
oh oh okay, but these are the same people that are okay with fucking Beanie Boy posting his fucking his videos where he's reading articles verbatim. They've got no problem with that unethical bullshit.
Well, I think that they were just like, dude, you're flooding the feed. Also, remember, Kotaku in Action today is not the community it was. It's a lot smaller now. It might have like
Yeah.
more technical subscribers than it used to, but like the number of active posters is significantly lower. So like from their point of view, it's like, well, we only get like 10 posts a day, and 2 of them are about this fucking your videos.
Yeah.
So I understand why. So I stopped posting them there as much altogether, except for like the big ones so far. And I realized, you know what? If I need to rebuild the trust of the Kotaku in Action community. Well, I mean, I stopped trusting them. I mean, not rebuild the trust. I think it's important for me to be not on like terrible terms with Kotaku in Action because they I think it's important for my book to be taken seriously. Um, and part of that means that like they obviously have they I don't want like their only critique of me so far is that I've promoted too much on the hashtag. Now the Kotaku in Action 2 people, they have a whole bunch of critiques of me. They have a bunch of critiques of me. They think I'm like way too left wing. That basically just that.
Let me
You,
guess, you don't talk about the JQ enough for them.
well, I don't know if they're that extreme, but they are upset that I said the election was real, that the that Trump lost the 2020 election. They were like losing them. They
Uh,
were very upset about this, and they've
you're
even
you're never going to get anybody to agree on that particular point. There are just two camps, and you're never going to get them to agree. So don't
well,
even bother.
like it might be worth doing like a deep dive at some point and like debunk like all of their specific claims about like the election. But it was also 3 years ago, and we have another election coming up. So I don't. Plus, the courts have already done this, dude. Like the courts have already shot him down, and so if
Yeah, you know what? I'm no,
international
no, 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 no.
observers and
I'm gonna take issue with you on that particular point because I did happen to follow some of the court cases that were going to the Supreme Court over this, and the
none of them went to
problem
the Supreme
is
Court.
at the time at the time none of those cases ever actually were reviewed on the evidence but got shot down on procedural grounds.
Well, there was no evidence for any of them, and I don't know if that's
How
true,
do you
dude. Like,
you no,
so
you
no,
don't
so
know that.
no,
The evidence wasn't reviewed, so there's no way for
no,
anyone to
dude.
know. And that is why they're able to make claims like this.
Every single
Whether
one
you
of
agree no, 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 no. Whether you agree with them or not, that is the perception.
No, dude, over there were dozens and dozens and dozens of court cases, and every single fucking judge, including Trump-appointed judges, all dismissed all their claims. And then his
Okay,
own
and
cabinet members resigned. The Department of Justice, the head of Department of Justice, who he appointed, and the head of the cybersecurity agency that he created, all said that the election was free and fair. That the cybersecurity expert said that this was the most free and fair election in American history, perhaps.
so people who are paid to lie to you
By
told you
Donald
that
Trump,
this was the
appointed by Donald
freest
Trump,
and
in organizations created by
yes,
Donald Trump.
yes, he appointed people who are paid to lie. And you're taking them at their word. Do you see how that kind of makes you look a little stupid?
No, not at all, actually. I think because I'm not like a conspiracy
You're
nut
no, no, no,
who's
no,
like,
because you're no, no, no. This isn't about conspiracies, dude. This is about the fact that these cases were never actually fucking reviewed on the
I don't
evidence,
think
and
that's
you're
true.
taking their word.
I don't think
You,
that's true.
dude,
Hey, look, we'll see. We'll find out when.
these ca- these case these cases were reviewed by the Supreme Court,
No, they
and
weren't revealed by the
they
Supreme.
did.
They, they
They
were.
weren't. They were.
They were not. No, the Supreme
They.
Court never ruled in on
Yes,
Trump's
that's what I'm saying.
because they don't
They never
because there was
actually
never any
ruled.
credibility to them. So look, the way the
That is
justice,
their
the
assertion.
way the courts.
They dismissed them on procedural grounds, so the evidence was never actually reviewed, and that is why
No,
people think the election was rigged. You're never going
no,
to get
no. They
anybody's mind to
believe it
change
because
on this
Trump lied
point.
to them, dude.
And more to the
No,
point,
look, no, devil's advocate.
yes, okay, dude,
The
he
way the
lied to them,
court system
yes,
works is
but
that you
you are
have.
taking these people's word on this issue, and it's making you look like an imperialist stooge, dude. Okay, I'm
No,
trying to
I'm just
level with
revealing
you.
all. I'm revealing the evidence and going over the evidence, and
Oh,
it doesn't look like.
you didn't review the
No,
evidence. Okay, you're taking their word for it and you're running with it.
no. Look, the
And
way
it
our
makes you look
court
really
system works,
fucking stupid.
and maybe you look. No, I think
Our
you
court system,
haven't looked at it.
dude.
No, look,
The
the way it
Supreme
works is look, you have to have you have a claim, you file it in the court, right? You file it, and then it's revealed, and you can look. There's a decision, and then there's an appeal, okay? And then it goes to an appeal.
But there is no appeal in this case. That's the
Because
point.
no, look, the Supreme Court only
The
takes a
Supreme
small
Court,
number of
the,
cases every year, but if they think it's
the
actually
Supreme Court in
important.
this case was the court, bro. The Supreme Court in this case was the fucking court of first instance. There was no appeal. They shot these down on procedural grounds. That's it.
No,
That
they
doesn't
went
mean
through
that
this.
there
They
was
went
no
through the lower
actual
courts
ground.
first.
No,
They went through the lower courts first, and they lost every time. And the
bro.
Supreme Court said,
I'm
"Look,
not gonna convince
there's no
anybody.
reason for us to go. There's no reason for us to take this case because there's nothing here. The lower courts, and the lower appellate courts have all determined this."
So wait a minute. So the Supreme Court never gets anything wrong? Is that what you're telling me?
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not.
because because Roe v. Wade got overturned recently. Are you saying they didn't get that wrong?
Well, I'm
Is
not
that
sure if
what
they
you're
got
telling
that
me?
wrong or not.
Well, clearly they must have gotten it wrong. I mean, did they get it wrong? You tell me.
I don't know actually. Probably not. They probably got it right. I'm pro-choice,
Oh,
but
okay. So they.
I don't see there
No,
being a
well,
right
wait a
to.
minute. Wait a minute.
No, look.
So
So
you're
look,
you're
no, I
pro-choice,
don't. I
but
see
they.
what you're trying to do, and it's not. So the problem is, look. The problem is like you view the world as like this block, this monolithic block of like the
Oh,
people
that's
in
what it
control
is.
and the people not, right? When like I think that it's significantly more nuanced. Like the reason like we want to design our systems and like our system was originally designed to like be a certain way is because you want to have like a large number of different actors with competing interests operating within the system who have skin in the game. And like these large number of different competing actors are in theory supposed to provide a check on each other. And like they like generally do that pretty well when it comes to government.
Bro, I'm gonna have to agree to disagree with you on this entire fucking topic. And we're getting deeply in the weeds.
We're getting way away from Gamergate, dude. I'm sorry.
We're getting way away from the topic. But yes, I do think you're wrong. I think it makes you look a little foolish, but I don't think that you're an asshole. How about I put it that way?
Okay, well, that's fine. We can move on to the next thing.
Okay.
We're still in the harassment section.
Oh God.
Do you think most GamerGate people did a good job condemning harassment?
I don't think it was their fucking job to condemn harassment. I mean, illegal things are illegal, unethical things are unethical, dipshit things are dipshit. Why is it their job to condemn any of it?
That's a good question. They probably shouldn't have to, but I think a lot of people did because they because their movement got accused, and they felt like,
okay,
well, we should probably put some optics.
No.
Care about
Let
optics
me frame it to you this way. Is every black man responsible for the criminal activities of every other black man?
Absolutely.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Didn't think I was going to bite that bullet, did you? No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck you. See, guys, he really is right-wing. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Kotaku in action too, man. I'm coming back. Make me a mod.
Ah. Next up, the JQ.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't think that every black person's responsible for the actions of individual black people.
Okay, but yeah, I can see how it's a rhetorical strategy where people want to get you to condemn shit, and you really it's not your responsibility. You shouldn't have to do it. And honestly, I advise people not to do it. And I advise them to say why. It's not my fucking job.
Well, speaking of things that aren't your job, the next question is if you saw someone, quote, on your side, unquote, doing something you thought was bad, how would you handle that situation?
Well, we just talked about two examples over the last couple of hours of me doing that, so
True.
you have your answer.
True. You don't have to
And
talk
I got
about it, but
lambasted for it. Sorry, go ahead.
well, no. If you want to talk about how you feel about that situation, we can. The two situations.
Well, no, because I mean we kind of already covered that. I'm just venting a little bit. I I want to express my disappointment with the fact that some people just cannot engage in ideological consistency, and they want to try to play power politics, but they play it very badly. They think that they just have to pile behind everyone who expresses even the slightest bit of support for them, and it never works out, but they never seem to learn that lesson. Get good.
You don't have to answer or talk about it, but did you experience any harassment during GamerGate from either side or from third-party trolls?
Um, I mean, certainly people shot their mouths off, but I never felt harassed. Uh, I felt like I was on the internet.
Why do you think the media largely didn't cover harassment against GamerGate supporters?
It went against their narrative, and it's how do you sell that anyway?
Do you have any thoughts on Zack Attack?
What the fuck was that attack again?
Remember when the some of the anti-GamerGate people tried to dox Mombot, and then
Uh,
their chat logs were revealed because there was an infiltrator in their group.
I know that it was posted in KIA, but I don't think I was paying attention.
Do you still post on KIA?
No. Occasionally I'll post on KIA too, only on the Reddit. Um, but mostly I'm inactive.
What do you think of the term sea lining?
A silly term.
Do you think the sea line was right?
Pass.
Do you have any? What do you think of the Burgers and Fries IRC chat room? Do you think that that's a form of harassment or anything like? Or what do you think of it? I don't care. I'm not gonna
Well,
frame it a certain way.
I only have peripheral knowledge of burgers and fries. The fact that a lot of diggers were active in there, so in that respect, it was a good thing. Anything else that might have gone on there, I can't really speak to.
It doesn't seem like that much bad stuff really happened there. Really, that's what the anti-GamerGate people hinge a lot of their arguments. Well, some they used to. I don't know about anymore. They used to hinge a lot of their arguments on this chat room. Um, but like there's not like there's a couple people there who might have been assholes, but like it doesn't seem like it's the smoking gun they were hoping for.
Honestly, I would take a lot of what they say with a grain of salt, just because I see the same kind of arguments levied against a certain New Zealand website, which also have no basis in reality.
Well, do you think? Well, fuck it. We can talk about it. Kiwi Farms. Do you think that they
You said the
obviously?
power word.
I don't care. I'm not afraid of words. I'll say
I know. I
Voldemort. Um,
don't.
but Brianna Wu and some of the people on both sides of the Gamergate thing, the Kiwi Farms people have a great interest in them. And Brianna Wu and Mark Mann, who I interviewed, and Short Fat Otaku, who I might be interviewing or who might interview me about the book after. And instead of participating in the project directly. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. But like a great number of the GamerGate people on both sides have become or are perceived as having become Lao cows.
Mm,
And Kiwi Farms has a great deal of interest in these people. It's safe to say, right?
You, you don't say.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess I'll ask, do you think the Kiwi Farms people engage in harassment against these people or no?
No, no. Mo- all that I have ever seen is people posting what these people have posted themselves publicly. And if that's harassment, then it's harassment against themselves. What,
Well, they're not supposed to touch the poop, right? But
right.
do people break that rule?
I would say that there probably are some people who do it. They are condemned on the forums, and yet uh, we're they're there to document uh, lolcows doing stupid shit, and that includes weens that go out and touch the poop.
Some people say that Kiwi Farms is not a good community. What do you think of that?
I think politicians aren't a good community, and neither are journalists. But nobody's trying to ban them, but maybe we should.
Well, I'm not saying that Kiwi Farms people should be banned. I'm a free speech person. Um, but the reason I ask is because you associate with yourself with this forum, right? Are you a member or just lurk?
No comment.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, don't show your power level.
Yeah. What do you have any thoughts on GG Revolt?
They're a bunch of retards. They're okay. Obviously, I got no problem with the idea of people uh, wanting to branch out into larger cultural war issues, obviously, but the people who participated in GG Revolt acted like complete fucking retards. Ineffectual retards.
Is that fair to the GG Revolt people?
Yes.
Everyone like so, but like I've interviewed some
No.
of the GG Revolt people, and like the QQ, like QQ is like Revolt adjacent, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he actually officially posted there. Um, I interviewed the guy. I still don't fucking know. He probably told me one way or the other. I just forgot. But he views GG Revolt as being a board, and the board was hyper focused on drama, but like otherwise had like a pretty good atmosphere and some good ideas that were associated with it, like the Titan Post. And he
I
thinks
mean,
that the GamerGate, the quote unquote like mainstream GamerGate people, kind of threw the
we're
GamerGate
ethics
revolt
cucks.
people. No, so hang on, let me
All right, go ahead.
phrase it. So I should have had the phrasing down before I started talking. Um, I guess I'll just wing it. I think he would argue. I'm kind of mind reading here. He's not here to say if this is his view or not, but I think he would argue that GG Revolt kind of broke off from the main game. That's not even really how he would phrase it. So he would say that GamerGate Revolt was a board that was created to allow information to be posted, including digs that other GamerGate communities didn't want. And for some reason or another, the quote unquote mainstream Gamergate communities and Gamergate people decided that everyone they didn't like was GG Revolt. And they threw that accusation around like crazy, sometimes justifiably, and perhaps in other games not, because they were perceived as the bad guys.
They were perceived as the bad guys because they focused a lot on drama, specifically drama involving GG personalities, which, okay, maybe some of it was deserved, but at the same time, it didn't exactly earn them any friends, now did it?
No, but like, their job shouldn't be to make friends necessarily. Like you criticized Rutledge Doggett and Roy Calbeck and The Brad Wardell.
Okay, true. And I criticize them for very valid grounds. You might argue that, but my experience with GG Revolt is that for the most part, they lashed out at so-called e-celebs. They seem to have this view that there were certain people here who were just trying to make a name for themselves through GG, which, yeah, that's definitely true. I think it's arguably true, but they seem to hyper focus on that, even with respect to people where that may not necessarily have been true, and to the point where it seemed like a lot of sour grapes on their part that some people succeeded and they didn't.
Can you define what you think harassment is?
I adopt the legal definition of harassment, and any attempt to try to expand that is bullshit.
Yeah. Well, okay. Push me back on this because I think the legal definition of harassment is fine, but I do think that there is this also. There are things that people can do to fuck with you that go beyond the internet and can ruin your real life shit while not being illegal. Like campaigns to get people fired over whatever it happens to be, like cancel culture stuff. Like that I think does like it's there's something harassmenty to it, even though it doesn't rise to the
I
legal
would
definition.
I would not call that harassment. I would call that a species of tortious interference.
Yeah, well, I'm not a lawyer. I guess are you?
No.
Ah.
But let's just say that I have a very large amount of legal knowledge, and we'll leave it at that. Technically, what where we're describing, doxing doesn't really fit the bill of tortious interference, but I think it should.
And that would be a tort then, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you wouldn't in your so you would okay. So that's really bad. Still, you can get sued and have your life fucked up. Um, to the legal system if you like do this bad stuff. I mean, you I mean, it's have your life fucked
Well,
up
yeah.
if you deserved it because like
Don't go out.
you wronged an
Yeah, don't go
individual.
after people's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
don't
again,
try to interfere with somebody's job, and you won't get sued. I don't think that it should be criminalized. It's just a tort. But yes, I do think it should be illegal to interfere with somebody's job. There are, I think, exceptions to that. Again, I adopt a nuanced view here. I think it's okay to go after somebody who is a ostensibly a representative of a company, somebody who's acting as their public relations and maybe has views that don't align with the company they're supposed to be representing. Obviously, I don't really have a problem with people talking to advertisers, again, for the same reason. But if you're going after some rando because you had an argument with them on the internet and they just happen to work at some company, I think you're a fuckwit and you're an asshole and you deserve to get screwed.
gee, this talk about PR people who work for companies, it's I feel like there might be something worth exploring there. You
Is this
know,
the part where we talk about Allison Rapp?
only if you want to.
Yeah, okay, let's get into it.
I don't want to like
'Cause-
debate it or anything because like I've debated it to
Well,
we're
no,
I
no,
don't
go ahead,
think
because this.
okay. What do you think of
Sorry,
Allison
go
Rapp
ahead.
getting fired? Just give me your view. And people, what do you think
Okay,
of? No, sorry,
so
no. Let me rephrase that. What do you think of people who don't work for Nintendo mass contacting Nintendo and creating a hashtag campaign specifically to make this one person lose their job?
I think that ostensibly she was sort of in a PR like position, so she was a valid target. But at the same time, when all this started, the only information we really had, or at least the only information that was public, um, was her really goofy view. I think uh, on age of consent laws. I can't remember if it was from like some dissertation that she had made.
In college, yeah.
This was being shared. Yeah, and that was really the only thing people had, and it just To me, at the time, I was still doing videos at that point, and that was going to be my next video. Was going to be on Allison Rapp, and as I was looking into it, I didn't see a lot of real ethical issues here. She just said a really stupid opinion in some dissert, but that doesn't necessarily reflect on her personal opinions, at least as far as I knew. And the more I dug into it, the more I thought, this is looking really catty and bitchy, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So I stopped, uh, I stopped production on that video, and I actually at that point I stopped doing videos altogether. Um, but then of course, hindsight is 2020 because what was it? I think about maybe 8 or 9 months later, or I don't know, some number of months later, everything that had been circulating in back channels suddenly dropped, and we found out that Little Miss Rapp was actually working as an escort, and so was her boyfriend. And oh my, had I known that at the time, I would have gone through with it because, Nintendo is supposed to be the family friendly company, and do you really want a prostitute representing your fucking company?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure. I think it's perfectly fine if Nintendo fires her. I just didn't like the fact that a bunch of random people on the internet thought it was like their business to like make sure she loses her job.
I mean, again, they're supposed to be a family-friendly company, and yeah, maybe it's kind of douchey to get involved. Maybe you don't think it's their place, but at the same time, I don't know, man. She's supposed to represent their views, and she definitely wasn't.
Yeah. Well, that's I just view that as being between her and Nintendo, though.
Um, well, I mean, some of the, if some of the people involved were consumers and they have kids and they're worried about what this person is actually going to be representing to their children, I could kind of see it, but I don't think anybody involved was like a parent or anything. I think they were just looking for a target and they found a really good one, but they didn't share everything they had. So there you go.
Yeah, and to be clear, like the vast majority of GamerGate people didn't support harassing her. I think it's safe to say because like if you actually look at like only like 14 people actually, only 14 GamerGate supporters, and that's including GG Revolt people, um, ended up actually backing the hashtag campaign to get her fired, and over 1,300 people on Kotaku in Action ended up actually condemning this, and even Aaron Joni, strangely enough, the guy from the Zoe post, he actually commented on the situation and spoke out against it.
Good.
What do you think about how the media covered Gamergate?
Honestly, I think we've already pretty much covered that. I think they
Well,
were
it's a whole next
biased.
segment.
Oh
We can
God.
rush through. We can
I,
rush through.
yeah, I'll give glib answers then. Yeah, I think it was incredibly biased and self-serving, and they suck.
Are there any journalists you think did a good job covering Gamergate?
If there were, they didn't make enough of an impression for me to remember them.
Did anyone in the media reach out to you for an interview to discuss the movement?
No, the closest that I got would be what was it? When the meetups were first starting, and Milo Yiannopoulos was kind of sorta promoting some of them. Uh, I tried getting a hold of him, but nothing ever came of it.
Did you reach out to any journalists or media outlets who wrote articles about Gamergate to correct misinformation?
No, I saw no point.
Are there any specific articles or videos you want to discuss?
Um, 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 no, I think we've covered a lot of things, really.
I don't remember you being a YouTuber. What kind of videos did you make?
So I jumped in with videos on basically just culture war topics. I did, but most of it was I only did maybe 8 videos, and the production was very irregular. I never developed a steady rhythm for it. The only time I ever saw any real success was when I went after Star Citizen. Apparently, people who are really invested in that game do not like pointing out the failings of their beloved game. Yeah, they really did not like my videos. But yeah, after a time, uh, when the Allison Rap thing, I kind of did some reflecting, and I thought, I'm not getting I'm not getting a lot of attention on this, except when like with Star Citizen, obviously. And I started feeling like this was becoming more of a job instead of just some fun little shit posting thing I was doing. And if I'm not making any money at it and it's not fun anymore, why do it?
Did you make any GamerGate videos?
Yeah.
Did the media's coverage of Gamergate increase or decrease your trust in the media?
Well, that's certainly not a loaded question. No, of course it didn't really change my opinion of them because I already thought that they were scumbags.
If a journalist who got this you can have a I don't want to influence your answer, so I'm not gonna make a joke. If a journalist who got Gamergate wrong in your view is reading this now, what do you want them to reconsider?
Reconsider living.
Dude, you're going like full edge lord on me, which I like, except like I don't want to get. It's not illegal for
Oh God, you
someone.
don't.
I'm not gonna get like
Okay,
the book's not gonna get in trouble, is it? If I have that in there.
okay, fine. I'll give you a PG-13 answer. Reconsider your life choices and maybe find a profession that is less scummy.
Well, like I don't, obviously I have the freedom of speech to have that in there, but I wonder if like it violates Amazon's terms of service or something to sell a book that has the idea that you should unalive yourself in Minecraft in it.
Well, then don't put that in there. Use my PG-13
All
answer.
right. What do you think the media can learn from how they covered Gamergate?
I don't think they'll learn anything, but if there is a lesson in there, it's that if you're going to try to go after people for their choice of hobbies, you should probably pick one that less people are familiar with. I, like I said, I made the example of guns. Uh, Not as many people are familiar with gun culture as they are with car culture or video game culture. Pick your targets better.
Have you seen the Gamergate Wikipedia article?
Um, I don't really pay much attention to Wikipedia anymore since it's filled with such bullshit even on technical topics. Like, well, I won't get into it, but suffice it to say, I don't consider them to be a valid source of any truth.
And I should also, I've already made it clear in the comments section, and in the book, I'm going to make it clear as well. But in the interview with Roy Calbeck, ironically enough, he talks about a different person involved with Gamergate, also known as the Devil's Advocate. Apparently, there's two of
Right.
you, and you're not the same person.
Yeah, there is some guy who was I guess he was like an editor on Wikipedia. I don't know any details beyond that except that I think he may have interacted in KIA at some point. I don't know for that for sure. But for the most part, I don't think there was any confusion between us except for now.
Would you like to see, quote, the narrative, unquote, on Gamergate change in your lifetime?
I think I think that it already kind of is, but it's not really the result of any productive discussion, but simply the fact that these people have revealed themselves for what they are. people have become more politically aware as a result of this. And so people are starting to cultivate their own class interests, whether other people like it or not. So one way or another, things are going to change.
Has your conscious experience as a human been made worse to any degree because of the negative narrative about Gamergate?
No, not in the slightest. I mean, this largely took place online. I have a life.
Speaking of, no, you don't. You're a gamer. You have many lives.
Oh, very good.
I know, right? So original.
I use I use cheat codes.
I'm here all week.
Try the veal.
So what's your favorite video game?
Ooh, hard to say because I'm going to give two answers, and both of them are going to get me crucified. Civilization 6, because that's always my go-to as far as just casual play. Um, but also Harebrained Schemes BattleTech, because I just like blowing shit up.
I've not played either. I like the Civilization games. I played quite a bit of 2, 3, and 5, as well as the first one actually on Super Nintendo, strangely enough, SNES.
I played
but
that
not
one.
6.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a good port
Um,
actually. I mean, there's no online multiplayer or anything like that, but like in terms of it being, it could have been what they could have done. With the port is that made it would have made it so much better. Is if they had like co-op, not co-op, but like if you could play with somebody else or a hot seat with you and
yeah,
multiple other
yeah.
players in the same room, like that'd be really cool. But they
I,
didn't
I
do that.
keep telling my I keep telling myself that I'm not going to buy any more Civ games because it's theoretically they're just selling you the same game to you over and over and over, and I always rail against that. But here I am being a fucking hypocrite because hey, I like seeing new ways to nuke people. I mean, they do change the mechanics in every game. They finally got rid of the pollution mechanic, which I always thought was fucking retarded. Uh, so now you can actually nuke people and not have global warming start taking effect.
Yeah, the BattleTech game's pretty good though.
Oh God, yes. I mean, I'm see, I used to play the board game back when I was a teenager, and so I was deep into the lore. And oh, and this is actually a really good topic because this is another case where I think people were kind of dicks. Um, People who are deep into the culture war thing saw some of the decisions made in their port of BattleTech, and they just kind of turned up their nose at it because there was what you could pick your gender, I'm sorry, you could pick your pronouns or something, and to me, okay, yeah, if you're really hypersensitive about that sort of thing, it just seems kind of a really fucking stupid thing to make a big deal out of. But then on top of that, you had people arguing. What was it? One of the characters in there is what is she's like a black Muslim or some shit, and or no, maybe it was Indian Muslim or Pakistan or something like that. And I just remember thinking this is really fucking stupid because her whole backstory is lore correct, but and if you're going to insert so-called diversity characters, this is actually the way to fucking do it. But people were so pissed off about it, they wanted to rant, and I just thought it was so incredibly fucking stupid. It really showed that some people were just here to they were just here to rant. They didn't really care about the game. They didn't care about the lore. They wanted an excuse, and it just made them look really petty.
Oh, that's something unfortunately. Like I actually there's so many different like camps, I guess, on this shit. Like there's like the people who are like super woke and demand that you like put like every does your game meet the checklist? Do you have the gay Muslim midget character? No? Well, then you're a bigot. But then you also have like the people who are like, well, I don't care about diversity as long as it's done well. And then you have people who like don't care one way or the other. They don't have any strong opinions on this. And then you've also got people who are like, "Oh my God, well they have a black Muslim character, it must be woke," and they like lose their minds. And I
See,
think both of
I
the
just
extremes are like completely insane. I don't like either of them. I don't like what they're doing to some of the
yeah,
movies too.
I can't agree with these people if only because my memory is long enough to remember science fiction as being very, very driven by the left, and yet they still managed to create a lot of narratives that were really enjoyable. And even if you didn't necessarily agree with their point of view, you could still view it as mindless entertainment and not be shaped by it. But I think these people are becoming hypersensitive to that because they're so used to really, really shitty political inserts that they view even just the tiniest morsel of politically charged content as being unacceptable, and it's just not a good position.
Well, the next question is, well, it's supposed to be if you've attended a GamerGate meetup, but we could probably skip that one. You ran the meetups.
No, no, I never attended one. What are you talking about?
Do you want to talk about the friendships you made during GamerGate?
Um, I made them. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people from the meetup uh, ended up becoming, I would say, lifelong friends. I ended up meeting a whole hell of a lot of people through them, found work through them. Uh, I, maybe Gamergate was the friends we met along the way after all.
You know what? Like 2 dozen people have made that joke now.
I know it's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Actually, that's probably just as good of a definition of GamerGate as any other.
It's the friends we made along the way. Friendship rocks.
Do you have any thoughts on Vivian James or other GamerGate related art projects?
Mm, it was a good rallying point. Maybe this is the marketing side of me coming out, but it was a good brand. Let me put it to you that way. It made it very easy to reach out to people and say, "Hey, this is our thing."
What was your favorite moment during GamerGate?
Uh, Hulk Hogan being victorious over Gawker.
He gave them the
I mean,
people's elbow.
maybe yeah, he gave him the people's elbow from flying off the top turnbuckle.
If you could have changed one thing about GamerGate, what would it be?
Not a goddamn thing.
What would you personally have done differently during GamerGate?
Hmm. Some people gave me some shit for fucking with a a certain person they felt that I should not be fucking with because he was a bit of a lol cow. Um, but he was an asshole, and I really didn't like him for very good reasons.
Oh no,
Or
I know
maybe I
the Deep
should.
Lord. Oh, you're talking to the. You don't have to use euphemisms with me, Devil's Advocate. I know
Okay, yeah,
exactly who you're
they,
referring to.
yeah, okay, yeah, people and even in my own group straight up told me, why are you getting involved with the Ralph thing? Ju- You shouldn't be involved. There's no good can come of this. And to be honest, after Op Wreck-It Ralph, I just I tuned him out. He 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 shut the fuck up, and that at least for a couple weeks anyway, and that was good enough for me.
So now I have to ask a couple of different follow-up questions. I'm actually glad you brought this up because I forgot. So you were you the person who came up with the idea of Op Wreck-It Ralph?
Um, to be honest, it was so long ago, I can't remember if I did or someone else did, but I ended up running with it and promoting it.
So what did well I know what Ralph did that was so evil, but I'll let you explain in your own words. What did Ralph do that
Oh boy.
created this massive backlash against him? Not just your operation, that was one aspect of it, but just a general backlash against him at large, including this operation.
Yeah. So what? I mean, okay, he can be an asshole and he can run his mouth about whatever the fuck he wants, but where I drew the line was, and I can't remember which meetup it was, but someone's girlfriend. I didn't know the backstory here. I didn't find out until
Lily
later.
Fang, yeah.
But yeah, Lily Fang. She was supposed to attend, and at the time, I was actively filtering people to keep assholes out. I wanted to know that you were actually a GGer, that you participated in the hashtag. You weren't someone trying to fuck up our meetings. And at the time, I didn't know who she was. And so I just didn't give her the meetup details. And we all went out. We had a blast. We had a, what you call it, a Airbnb that we rented out. And everybody crashed. And when we woke up the next morning, right about the time we were waking up, she threw herself in front of a fucking train. Um,
What, she was
Not
supposed to
long
be there
after
that
that.
night?
Yes,
Because I know
she
she lived in
was.
that area. I didn't. Oh no, dude. Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
my god, dude, that
So
must make it like 10 times worse. I'm sorry. Oh,
Yeah, that is what really well, let's get to the next part, which is Ralph commenting on it, or more specifically, allowing Wild Goose to comment about it on his site. And like I said, you can say what you want, you can have your little opinions or whatever, but I really believe that Goose crossed the line between just having an opinion and harassing someone, and more to the point, harassing some complete fucking random who he wasn't like some kind of quote unquote leader of GG. He wasn't holding himself out as being some kind of uh, opinion leader or whatever. He's just some fucking rando who happened to be an easy target, and he's making fun of him for his girlfriend killing herself. So yeah, I took that very personally. I didn't know her, but I took it very personally, and I decided to make it known to his advertisers what he was doing, and ask them point blank, "Is this something that you condone? Harassing some random dude about his dead girlfriend? Is that something you want your brands to be involved in?" And surprisingly enough, I believe he was using Google Ads at the time, and they really didn't like that, and he got his ads pulled.
yeah, I remember this happening. Now I didn't know it was GamerGate people who necessarily did this because Oprecket Ralph, despite some people making public comments about it, a lot of it was back channeled. It felt.
Yeah, it was very back channel, but I mean that's all operations. They're not necessarily planned in public. But yeah, it was driven principally by the fact that he was a complete piece of shit who allowed this to happen on his site, and he can pretend that it's a freedom of speech issue all he wants, but it never was. It was about him being a complete fucking dick to someone who did not deserve it.
Yeah,
And
abso-fucking-lily.
he got everything he deserved. And I understand people not wanting me to get involved. I get that. Maybe I shouldn't have, but it's done, so there it is.
Oh yeah, I didn't do anything quite like that. I just condemned Ralph publicly. And then he allowed Wild Goose to dox me in his private chat room, his Slack channel. I've got the logs of this, by the way, if you want to hate him for more reasons. Um, and
um,
he's in the logs, literally saying, "I'm on the phone with his parents right now," and stuff like that about me.
so I can't get too deep into it, mostly because I don't know the full story. But you may be somewhat relieved to know that my understanding is that Wild Goose apparently he had some kind of a job as like a system administrator that required him to have a security clearance. And apparently, someone, not me, but somebody, made his superiors aware of his online activities, and he lost his clearance, and with it, he lost his job because he decided to fuck around online.
He fuck around and found out. I've heard not the full story, but I've heard rumors that he got fired. Anyway, yeah, dude, fuck Ralph, dude. That Dude, I didn't know she was supposed to go with the meetup the night before, dude. Oh, that
Yeah,
sounds so
I
fucking tragic, dude.
yeah,
I knew it was like a horrible situation. I didn't know that like the day before she would have been with you guys, and maybe that would have changed something. I don't know. I mean, like, or maybe not, right?
that's see, that's where my mind went because I'm like, well, maybe if for a time there, I was like, yeah, maybe if I wasn't filtering people, maybe she would have been there. Maybe it would have changed. But over time, I had to tell myself, no, she had her problems. It had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with us. But yeah, that definitely at the time it was definitely something I had to process, and that definitely added to my anger. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, dude, fuck. Well, now every answer I fucking if anyone ever asks me, and thankfully nobody has yet, don't change that, please. Or go ahead and ask me if you want, but like nobody's asked me yet, like, oh, what's the one thing you would change, Tachyon? Um, but I don't know if I can say I wish some people didn't die.
Yeah.
But like I don't know if that's a weird answer to give. I don't know if I can give that answer. They didn't
I
die
mean,
because of GamerGate, you know.
no,
Probably.
they
Like I don't
didn't.
know.
But at the same
This
time,
was a big part of some of these people's lives. So like I mean, maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe it played. Maybe that was the
I
thing that
don't
pushed him over
no,
the
I don't
edge.
know
I have
what
no
role,
idea. I don't know these people well enough personally. Because it's not just her. Other people have killed
and we
themselves too with the
shouldn't
GamerGate stuff.
speculate.
Yeah, we shouldn't speculate. But it's not just her. There's other GamerGate people who've, well, at least one other who took their own life as well.
What was that?
Well, I'll just say Liviana. Do you remember her?
I'm sorry, say it again. You broke up.
Liviana.
Liviana
Yeah.
doesn't ring a bell. No.
I was really hesitant because I didn't think it was super public, and but like I feel comfortable talking about it because like I don't think it's like private information or anything. Because it can't be. It's someone who passed away. But yeah, Giovanna Liviana. Um, she was more in like my sphere, I guess. She was like a moderator of the GamerGate Discord server. Um, she was also like a streamer and YouTuber on her own and made videos about GamerGate. They're still up actually.
Mm, yeah, it's not ringing any bells.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, she took her own life as well. I've learned. Anyway, let's say it's. Do you already asked the one? You already answered the one about what would you have done different personally, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say it's 10 years from now, and an online movement is looking to Gamergate for guidance for their movement. Do you have any advice for them?
Um, look at successful movements of the past. Look at what tactics worked for them and learn from them. This is something that not enough people do. I know that's kind of glib, but hey, it's true.
What have you personally learned from Gamergate?
I've personally learned that some people just will never change. They are it's not that they're incapable of change, but that their thought processes have a certain inertia all their own. And just having a one-on-one conversation generally isn't enough for them, especially if they view you as a class enemy. Um, some conversations they just aren't worth having with certain people because of that. Um, you have to pick and choose who you talk to try to find the most productive targets to change their mind in order to affect real change.
I can I ask? You said you were vetting people. Is the reason she didn't go to the meetup, or the reason that she wasn't given the information about it, rather, because she didn't pass the vetting? or what? Or,
It's because it was because I simply didn't know who she was, and I couldn't even begin to vet her. I didn't know who she was, and nobody got back to me in time. It wasn't until I think the next day or something that somebody had mentioned. In fact, I think what it was um, somebody had DM'd me and told me that she was supposed to be there, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And number one, who is she? And number two, what are you talking about? And that's when I went back and I checked the invite list, and she was there, and she was just one of the people that I was never able to find out who she was.
uh, thanks. I know it's probably difficult for you. I just wanted to make sure that if I ever talk about the situation ever again, that I have the full facts. So thank you.
No, no, you're good.
Do you see parallels between Gamergate and the way society currently discusses issues?
Oh yes, we kind of covered this. Again, it goes back to my view of this being class driven. The same, the same tactics that are used in GG are used in pretty much any any class issue where people want to shut down discussion. So what happened? I know that anti GG likes to say that, oh, GG got Trump elected, and that's a bit of an oversimplification. But it is true to say that the tactics that were employed against GG made some people politically aware, and that might have pushed them towards, you know, unconventional candidates.
What do you think of the decentralized and leaderless nature of Gamergate?
I think it was at once its greatest strength and also its greatest weakness. Um, on the one hand, it made it very difficult to coordinate, to take effective action, but at the same time, it also made us less vulnerable to anyone trying to insert themselves, take control of the movement, and just completely shit can it.
Would you? Oh, I already asked you that one. Um, Honestly, dude, your fucking meetups sound baller as fuck. Holy shit. You guys got an Airbnb?
Yeah, they now that wasn't me. That was someone else who did that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Dude, oh my god. You
Oh
should be
wait,
the one
actually,
running the
wait.
fucking reunion,
Come to
man. Or you guys should.
come come to think of it, let me no. I want to correct the record on that. Someone did the Airbnb before me. I don't want to name names, but then there was a second meetup after that where I ended up setting one up. So just to correct the record.
Okay. Dude, my meetups were. We went to, for
And
St. Louis, we went to an arcade, a Dave and Buster's. That's kind of cool,
there's
I
nothing
guess.
wrong with
Yeah,
that.
nothing wrong with that.
No,
Nothing wrong with that. And then,
dude, we were trying to find an arcade in our area, like a barcade or something, but it's really hard to find decent ones. We at one point, let me think. I think it was Emporium. What I can't remember the fucking name of it, but we did find a barcade in SF that we went to just once, and that was pretty cool. But that was more towards the latter end of the meetups when things were starting to wind down and not as many people were coming. I think that honestly would have been a great location when we were at our peak, but we didn't find out about it until much later.
uh, yeah, we did the Dave and Buster's. Then we did a mall. I don't know. I thought it'd be fun. Um,
But you did
then
what?
we
I'm
did
sorry, you did what?
a mall. We went to a shopping mall.
Oh, yeah, we did the same at
Yeah.
one, well, not a mall. It was we went to Japantown, which
Oh,
is weebtastic.
that sounds awesome. And then we
It
did
actually
a
was.
cigar lounge. We had to meet up at a cigar lounge.
Oh my god.
And
Okay. I gotta drop a little bit of flavor lore. I think it was during our trip to Japantown. and we found this one Ikazaya, and we all went in there, a nice little Japanese restaurant, and we started getting really hammered, which is as we do. And at one point, I'm kicking back a beer, and I kind of close my eyes as I'm taking a drink, and all of a sudden I hear this loud crash, and I feel something hit me, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" And I open my eyes. There's beer everywhere because a certain person who will remain nameless, he knows who he is, ended up like slamming down a huge pitcher of beer onto the counter. It just completely shattered. Beer everywhere, glass flying. A very iconic GG moment.
Oh, there's so many great stories from the meetups. We did a couple other. I don't remember where I hosted them. Maybe I hope when maybe we did them at the arcade again a couple other times. I don't know. Um, and I tried to get people to do them at the conventions, but it never really panned out. Like I tried to do like a GG at one of the cons, and but it was like last minute. Like, hey, I'm here. Anyone want to meet up? And nobody came. And then I did another one at a different convention, and someone did meet me there, and we were actually talking and hanging out. Um, but we never exchanged like numbers. Like I just had like their Reddit,
Right.
and they had my Reddit, and we actually hung out at the convention together for a while, and then never met back up the entire time. Like we got like separated, and like we never saw each other again ever. I don't know to this day. I don't know who this person was. I'm sure if I went through, oh, actually, I deleted my old Reddit account, so actually, I can't even go through the old messages and see. Um, but I did meet up with one random person from like Kia or something at one of the cons, and then I met actually someone else too at this other convention where I was hosting a panel about GamerGate. One of the ones I was doing a panel at. Um, I met somebody at the bar before the panel started, and we talked about it. They were like an anti-GamerGate person actually, and we had like a really good
Okay.
conversation and talked about it for like over drinks for like an hour, hour and a half. And then I think they went to the panel and I never saw them again. Anyway, have you ever thought of writing a book or doing another kind of project like that related to Gamergate?
No, honestly, for me, GG just it it spun off into the wider cultural war, and for me, GG is just kind of it's a closed topic. It had its time, and I would say for the most part, we didn't really get what we wanted. Um, yeah, it's kind of a closed book for me.
Well, the next question is, um, for you personally, what would Gamergate being successful look like?
um, actually, you know what? Let me I'm going to contradict myself. We actually did get some of the things we wanted, or at least some of what I wanted. And that of course is journalists going out of business. That's victory for me.
Oh, well, there we go. Yeah, you know what? I'll say this. When people ask me about this question, I usually give like well, we got some things we wanted and some things we didn't, and I go through like a list of what I think we succeeded and where we think we didn't. Um, but on a personal level, Gamergate was a great time in my life, and I think that my conscious experience as a human is better for having lived through Gamergate and built the connections I did through Gamergate and become the person I am today in part because of Gamergate. And so
Fair
I
enough.
feel like it was, for me personally, at least, it was successful. And I think we got some of the stuff we wanted, but we didn't get everything. You never get everything, I guess.
So
If
in conclusion, GG, no re.
well, actually, the next question is if you could do it all over again, would you?
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Me too. Would have made some different choices, but aside from that, Um,
I would have promoted that one video on Based Gamer a lot more.
oh, you did a video on Base Gamer?
Oh God, yes. Uh, I did a video on them because I obviously I do have a technical background, and when they started giving figures about how much their website cost, I knew it was bullshit instantly. So I started going over the math and what it would really take to set up a website on their scale. And then and then just to cap it all off, I'm like, okay, so if this is how much it actually costs to build a website at that scale, where did all the money go? And then it starts a slideshow with what's her name attending all these different conventions,
Jenny
basically
Barrage?
outright stating, yeah, Jenny Barrage, basically outright implying that she embezzled all the money to go to conventions.
Yeah, again, I can't
Oh, and
verify
it would
that accusation. I'm gonna
and
have to reach out to her for comment now, aren't I?
and set to the tune of yakety sax.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to reach out to her for comment now, aren't I?
Go for it.
Not now, but like I'll shoot her. I'll shoot her a DM on Instagram. Um, we don't like still keep in
I don't
touch
even
really or
think
anything.
I don't even think she's still around, honestly.
She's on Instagram,
Is she?
or she used to be. I'm not sure if she's active.
Hmm.
What do you think of this interview project?
Uh, well, as you know, I was initially skeptical. I still don't know that it's going to amount to any good. But at the same time, maybe we should get all of this. Maybe we should get all of this down just for posterity before we all forget about it. Because I know, in my case, certainly, since this was all stuff that happened 10 years ago or close to 10 years ago, I certainly had to refresh my own memory about some things that happened. So maybe it is better to get it all down.
Why were you skeptical at first?
Because I don't know that it would really. Number one, I don't know that it's going to change anybody's mind for the reasons I've stated. And number two, I don't even know that there's really an audience for it at this point. I mean, if it had been done in, say, 2017, 2018, sure, but now, I don't know.
Well, I've got I've had to start turning away people. A lot of people do want to tell their stories. And the videos up until recently, and that could be the YouTube thing out getting changed. Up until recently, the videos have been getting like decent views, I feel. Like not like millions or not even thousands, but like there's clearly at least several hundred people who are interested in this.
Well, you have
It,
your answer.
yeah. But probably way more. I just haven't promoted the book that much, which is why I'm going to start trying to promote it more as I move into the editing phase after I finish the interview phase. Um,
Yeah,
so
eventually.
you had you've warmed up though a bit. What caused you to warm up to
Warm
the
up?
project?
Oh, you mean to the project? Um, I think it was mostly listening to a couple of the interviews and just it started jogging my memory about different things that had happened, and it got me thinking that, like I said, maybe we should be recording this. Because okay, this goes to this goes to somebody else that I butted heads with in the past, which is Jason Scott of I think he currently works at archive.org. But he still does run a website called textfiles.com where he archives uh, just basically any old text file from the days of dial-up BBSs, whether that's a good thing or not. And I don't know. I always used to give him shit about his pack rat mentality, uh, just trying to preserve everything and everything, anything and everything. And I still don't think that's necessarily a good idea, but I have come around to the idea that you don't necessarily know what's going to be important in the moment or even a few years after it happens. Sometimes it takes you a decade or two to process what happened and realize, hey, this was kind of an important thing, even if it didn't seem so at the time, or maybe other events have added new context to it that brings it a new importance. So, maybe it is worth getting all of this stuff down so that even if it doesn't make sense right now, you can go back later and make some sense out of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna 100% defend this guy, by the way. I'm a huge supporter of archiving and cataloging history, and archive.org is one of humanity's greatest tools. I think the fact that people have been since the 90s archiving almost every website in existence, or as many as they can, and documenting what the internet was like, and all the good, all the bad, everything, just the truth, the reality. I think that that's amazing. I find that a very extremely useful tool in my day-to-day life almost.
Oh yes, I'm
And
I'm going to agree with you 100%
and
that
I'll even
Jason Scott is a tool.
and textfiles.com. I actually, completely unrelated to Gamergate, I discovered this website like 4 months ago, actually. And I've not dug through it too deep, but I think it's really amazing that someone's going in and archiving all the old modem BBSs and stuff like that. I'm glad that this exists. And at some point in my life, I might even decide to go through it and some of it because it is interesting. It really is interesting to see like what the fuck were people talking about on BBSs in the 1970s. Like it's a really fascinating topic, I feel, and I'm glad that someone's like
It's kind of
documenting it
an
for history.
It's an underexplored topic, and it's unfortunately probably going to remain one. Even though there have been books in the past, but probably the biggest problem is that some people, some sysops, preserve their boards on a hard drive somewhere, or maybe they backed it up to a zip drive and forgot about it, and they don't know that other people are out there, wanting to know, hey, what was this world like? What did people talk about? And it's not like with, say, Usenet, where you had people backing stuff up onto tape at universities using resources that they didn't have to pay for. Back then, bulletin boards were run by amateurs, and storage cost money, so a lot of stuff is just lost to time.
I wonder. I've been thinking about what kind of book I'm going to write next after this, and I've got some ideas. One of them is about the sad puppies controversy, which I don't know that much about
Mm.
actually. Another one is about what World of Warcraft culture was like in the heyday of WoW. Another idea is about maybe this. I didn't think about this before, but it could be an interesting topic to explore because most of the people who made these BBSs in the 70s and 80s, um, they're still alive, but they're getting older. They won't be around
Yeah,
forever.
they're not.
Maybe interviewing
Yeah,
like a dozen of those people who were participating in this world or running this world back then would be interesting from like a diverse set of BBSs. It's not just like one, but like interview a
yeah,
couple
because
people from
that's
like a
that's the
sports
big.
one, a couple from a video game one, a couple from like a movie one, whatever.
Right, because that's the biggest flaw of existing books on the topic, is the fact that they basically just focused on Ward Christensen having created the first one, and then it's like, okay, he created the first technically computerized bulletin board. Okay, yay, great. But what came after that? Why did other people create their own software? Why did some people congregate over here? Why did kids seem to get shut out of all the other boards? There's a whole range of topics that could be covered, but people hyper focused on Ward, and well, he's dead now, so
Yeah, I'm gonna put this on my list of ideas. This is actually a really good idea.
well, hey, if you need background, you've got my number, so.
Yeah, were you in the BBS modem scene or what
Oh,
BBS scene?
oh yes. So when I was about 9 years old, believe it or not, I I got a phone call from a friend of mine. It was about the end of summer vacation. We were just, shooting the shit about, hey, what did you do over summer? And he starts talking about this weird shit about bulletin boards and how you use a modem to dial with your computer to dial into them. And at the time, I already had experience with using a terminal and using a modem to use, what was it, TimeNet's home banking service for Bank of America to pay bills online. Because my old man was, he was, well, we won't get too deep into that, but he had medical issues. So sometimes he would have me take over the computer and he would direct me, hey, do this, do that. And so I got really, really proficient with Procom. And so after my friend told me about this, I'm like, well, hey, give me a number. And so he gave me numbers for a couple of local boards, and it was just off to the races after that. Very soon after that, we discovered pirate boards and hacking and freaking and all the other shit that comes with it. And ooh, that's a really big topic. But yeah, suffice it to say, I was involved from, let's see, probably 1990 through about arguably about 2001, although I would say most of my activity ended around 97 because that's when most of them started shutting down.
Yeah, and I when I was younger, I always found it a fascinating thing, but I kind of missed the boat on that, so I never really explored it personally.
It was definitely a fun time because it was, if you didn't pay for something like CompuServe or I guess later on AOL or whatever, uh, it really was the only way to interact electronically. But more to the point, you could talk about things that you couldn't talk about anywhere else because certainly I mean, okay, there were like hidden chat rooms on AOL due to, like tools like AOL, but for the most part, people didn't have access to those. So if you really wanted to talk about the things your parents didn't want you to talk about, you had to find a board that was run by some teenager out of his bedroom. Especially if you wanted to find all the latest games, you had to talk to another teenager running a board out of his bedroom.
Huh. What's the Gopher protocol?
Gopher. Gopher was kind of a proto web, if you want to look at it that way. It was just a way uh, or, uh, to organize information. But wait, why do you ask?
Oh, I'm just like I go down rabbit holes. Um
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, hey, this might be your last chance to tell them. So the last question before we open it up is some people reading this might hold a negative view of Gamergate. Do you have anything you want to say to these people?
Eat a bag of shit.
Really? I mean, like, you're not gonna try and change their mind. What
That's-
if it's a reasonable person?
okay, okay.
No, no, I mean, look, dude, keep your answer whatever the fuck you want it to be, man. Don't give into my pressure from me.
Well, no,
But
no,
like,
no,
if you
no, no,
feel
no,
like
no,
you
no, no.
should give a more moderate answer too, in addition to the eat a bag of shit answer, then like,
Okay, for those of you who will not change your mind, eat a bag of shit. But for those of you who are at least open to the possibility you might be wrong, consider consider your sources and consider maybe uh, listening to some of these interviews because you never know. Having another perspective on the topic might change your mind. I doubt it, but it's worth a try.
well, hey, anything else you want to talk about?
Uh, why is the sky blue?
Because it's reflecting the absence of blue.
Well,
Isn't that how colors
the
work?
correct answer. Well, the correct answer would be Rayleigh scattering, but okay. Anyway, no, I think we covered everything.
All right. Well, hey, dude, thanks again. And hey, that the textfiles.com guy, I would be interested in getting in touch with him actually. Maybe
You
not now,
you
but like at
probably
some
will.
point in my life.
Well, you'll probably find it pretty easy. He's definitely a blowhard and a media hound, so reach out to him.
Well, he doesn't have his email address on his website, does he? Not.
No, he doesn't, but he does. He is on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
It's hang on. It should be. It should be. Yeah, text.
Oh,
Just
he does have his email.
at,
Okay, he does have his email up. Okay,
well,
it's easily accessible.
he's also at text files. He's at text files at on Twitter.
Yeah. I would like to interview him at some point about Well, I just like to talk with him. I think he's like probably a person who's really smart and has a lot to add to our societal discourse, probably.
Tell him I hate his DVDs.
You hate his DVDs?
It's an inside thing.
Well, I'm not sure. I'll reach out to him. I'll shoot him a DM now. That way I don't forget. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. Um, dude, I don't know if I should. It's too late now to change it and take the hashtag out of the title. Um, but the next one I'll try doing it without the hashtag in it and see if it changes it. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, we'll close it down here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for. Be sure to like and comment, especially since the algorithm is changed the way, or YouTube seems to have changed the way that hashtags work. I definitely need the support. So thank you. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't.